Chapter 773. Equipment Refinement, Alchemy. In this era where most cultivators only knew how to do qi refinement, it was definitely an epic-making cultivation technique. Hence, when Wind Valley saw things like medicinal pills and magical weapons, he was so shocked that it almost shattered his worldview. Now the inventor, Chu Kuangren, was standing in front of him. Not only that, but he also acted as if he was unfazed, as if he was making a big fuss out of nothing. Wind Valley could not help but feel a little emotional. Chu Kuangren was too extraordinary. Every time he talked about Taoism, it would be like a deluge of heavenly flowers and heavenly transformations. Now that he had casually come up with two new things, it was enough to shock the human cultivators. Is this a sage? He really is from a different dimension than us. Song Shengxian, I'd like to ask if these two things can be mass-produced? Wind Valley asked expectantly. Of course. That's great. Wind Valley was extremely excited when they got the answer they were waiting for. It's just that I can't produce too many by myself. I'm currently teaching the people of the Yanwu tribe how to refine medicinal pills and equipment. Once they grow up, they can use medicinal pills and magical weapons on the entire human race. Chu Kuangren laughed. Wind Valley was shocked to hear that. Song Shengxian, what did you say? You plan to teach this technique to others. And it was not just one or two people. It was the entire Yanwu tribe. My abilities alone are limited. I can't refine many medicinal pills and magical weapons. Only with everyone's help can this technique be brought to life. Chu Kuangren said matter-of-factly. Both Wind Valley and Yanwu were instantly filled with respect. After all, Chu Kuangren's equipment and alchemy techniques could be said to be one of a kind in this era. As long as he was willing with these two techniques, he could easily obtain wealth, status, and power. However, he was willing to spread this technique and share it with everyone else for the sake of the entire human race. With such breadth of mind, he truly deserved the title of sage. In Wind Valley, Yanwu's respect and admiration for Chu Kuangren was like a torrential river that flowed endlessly. Song Shengxian said that his abilities are limited, but from what I can see, Song Shengxian is turning his limited abilities into infinite possibilities. The human race has Song Shengxian. The heavens bless the human race. Wind Valley said emotionally. Beside him, Yanwu continuously nodded in agreement. I have seen many people in my life, but most of them are selfish. There are very few who are as selfless as Song Shengxian, who thinks for the human race wholeheartedly. If the human race had more people like Song Shengxian, there would be no need to worry about the human race not prospering, and there would be no need to fear the gods. That's right. Sage Tsong's contribution is worthy of the heavenly Tao's testimony. It should be recorded in the annals of human history and praised by future generations. Chu Kuangren felt a little embarrassed when he heard the flattery from both of them. Alchemy and equipment refinement were all things that he had learned in the future. Even without him, the human race would have invented these things sooner or later. You two are being too serious. As a fellow human, this is merely something that I should do. Chu Kuangren hurriedly stopped the two of them from flattering him. If they continued to flatter him like that, he would feel like he was floating. Sage Tsong is indeed a sage. Even after achieving such a feat, he is still so humble. How rare, how rare. I'm convinced. If it was someone else, they would have long been arrogant to the extreme. The heart of a sage is indeed different from that of ordinary people. Chu Kuangren was speechless. Fine, I might as well not say it. On the other hand, Qingyi could not help but show a hint of admiration in his eyes when he saw how Fenrir and Yanwu were flattering Chu Kuangren. These two are really right. Young master is indeed such a person. After that, Fenrir and Chu Kuangren continued to chat about alchemy and equipment refinement. When he found out that there were different grades of medicinal pills and equipment, and that the medicinal pills and equipment he brought were only of the normal grade, he was extremely shocked. He realized that he had still underestimated the potential of medicinal pills and equipment. If these two items are developed, it will definitely be able to greatly advance the human race's cultivation progress. It will be a great achievement for all eternity. In Fenrir, Yanwu looked at Chu Kuangren with a fiery gaze. The admiration in his eyes were almost gushing out. Chu Kuangren sighed. These two are going to praise me again. Forget it. Come on, praise me hard. I can handle it. However, after a while he still did not hear anything from the two of them. Chu Kuangren was a little surprised. Why aren't they praising me this time? Sigh. Fenrir suddenly sighed. Brother Fenrir, why are you sighing? Chu Kuangren could not help but wonder. If they were not going to praise him, then so be it. Why were they sighing? Were they going to scold him? That would be too much. I'm sighing. Why didn't I study hard back then? Now, I can't think of the right words to express Song Shengxian's achievements. Fenrir sighed. Beside him, Yanwu shook his head and said, words are no longer enough to describe Song Shengxian's great achievements for the human race. Chu Kuangren was speechless. Chu Kuangren was speechless. He did not know what else to say, so he could only go with the flow. Not long after, Fenrir left the Yanwu tribe. He said that he would find some people to learn alchemy and equipment refinement in a few days. Chu Kuangren did not reject him. Yanwu did not reject him either. Fenrir's identity was not simple. He was one of the strong people behind the human race, so he could not reject him even if he wanted to. After Fenrir left the Yanwu tribe, he came to a dark valley. At the end of the valley stood a towering pavilion. A letter, to the reverse god pavilion. He walked into the pavilion, and candles were lit up in the dark against the god pavilion, illuminating a dozen silhouettes. Fenrir, did you seat Song during your trip to the Yanwu tribe? An indifferent voice was heard. I did. Oh, what do you think of him? This person truly lives up to his name as a sage. In fact, if I may say something disrespectful, I think this person is more outstanding than any sage in history, Fenrir said solemnly. The people in the reverse god pavilion could not help but be shocked at his words. You have such an evaluation of him? No, this is not my evaluation. This should be the evaluation of the future generations. In this era, no one has the right to evaluate him. The crowd could not help but fall silent for a while. Fenrir, don't you think you're exaggerating? Not at all. After that, Fenrir took out some medicinal pills and magic weapons, and recounted his meeting with Chu Kuangren. After listening, the crowd once again fell into silence. After a while, a voice was heard. Sage Tsang, what a great person. If what Fenrir said is true, then his generosity and achievements are indeed worthy to be recorded in the annals of history, and be remembered by the future generations. These magic weapons and medicinal pills are of great help to human cultivators. What kind of genius is this? How deep must his understanding of cultivation be to be able to create such a technique? I heard that when this person was preaching, a phenomenon that only happens when immortals preach about Taoism appeared. I didn't believe it at first, but now I'm convinced. I must be on good terms with this person. This song is of great importance to the human race. We must pay close attention to this person. If he needs any help, try your best to satisfy him. After hearing Fenrir's story, the human cultivators of the reverse god pavilion came to a consensus that they must be on good terms with Chu Kuangren. Chapter 774. Congratulations, host. You have obtained the God Tier 9 Transformations Tri-Elemental Soul Refinement Technique. On this day, Chu Kuangren had just finished drawing his rewards. The cultivation technique that he obtained caused him to reveal an expression of surprise. It was another God Tier cultivation technique. This was his second time obtaining a God Tier technique. The last time he obtained it was the Immortal Stellar Physique. The soul refinement technique sounded like a technique related to the soul. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. He had been wanting to focus on cultivating the soul, and it just so happened that he had obtained a God Tier technique related to the soul. That was great. Chu Kuangren could not wait to retrieve the technique. Suddenly, a large amount of mysteries surfaced in his mind. After a while, he had completely absorbed the God Tier technique in his mind. What a great 9 transformations Tri-Elemental Soul Refinement Technique. This technique is not inferior to the Immortal Stellar Physique. In fact, it's even better. This God Tier technique is amazing. Chu Kuangren knew that at his level of cultivation, there were not many things in this world that could shock him. However, this 9 transformations Tri-Elemental Soul Refinement Technique was so mysterious that even he could not help but exclaim in admiration. The 9 transformations tri-elemental soul refinement technique was indeed a technique that specialized in cultivating the soul. The 9 transformations referred to the 9 realms of this technique. The 3 realms referred to the cultivation process of this technique. This cultivation technique could allow one to cultivate 3 souls. That's right, 3 souls. The 3 souls were heaven, earth, and human. Cultivating 1 soul into 3? Such a thing was almost unimaginable. However, this technique could be achieved by cultivating 3 souls and then merging them together. After repeating this process 9 times, this technique would be considered complete, and the soul would reach the immortal realm. Cultivate. Without another word, Chu Kuangren began to cultivate this technique. His soul energy was now very strong, so he could cultivate it all the way to the 3rd transformation in one go. Very quickly his soul power began to split apart, transforming into a soul body that looked exactly the same. This was the Earth Soul. Soon, the human soul was also separated. Chu Kuangren sat with his legs crossed. Above his head, the 3 Bodhi souls in the form of the heaven, earth, and human souls looked at each other. Hello. Chu Kuangren's heavenly soul greeted the earth soul and human soul. Although this cultivation technique could split a soul into 3, there was only one original soul. That was the heavenly soul. This would also ensure that the 3 souls would not suddenly fight for some reason. It would be awkward if they killed themselves. Hello. The earth soul nodded slightly. This feeling is truly marvelous. The human souls looked at the heaven souls, and the earth souls could not help but click their tongues in wonder. The 3 souls had the same consciousness and memories, but they were also independent of each other. This feeling was too wonderful. I'm talking to myself now. Why do I feel like I have split personality disorder? Tianhun said playfully. Strictly speaking, the 3 of us have the same personality, so it doesn't count as a split personality. The Earth Soul couldn't help but correct him. Alright, that's enough chit-chat. Let's fuse. The human soul said. The man soul and the Earth Soul turned into 2 rays of light, and quickly merged into the heaven soul's body, fusing into 1 soul again. The first revolution of the 9 revolutions 3 elements was complete. Chu Kuangren once again activated the 9 transformations 3 elemental soul refinement technique. He then split into 3 souls. Hi, we meet again. The heaven soul greeted. Can you stop being naughty? The earth soul rolled its eyes. Aren't I you? The earth soul could not refute. I feel like my soul energy has grown a little stronger. The human soul said. Not only in quantity, but the quality has also become purer. The earth soul felt its own soul energy and said, let's fuse. The earth soul and the human soul once again fused into the heaven soul. The 3 souls fused into 1, and the second revolution was complete. Then came the 3rd revolution. The 3 souls were formed again. Hello you guys, cut the crap. Let's fuse. Oh. The 3 souls fused again, and the 3rd revolution was complete. When the 3rd revolution was completed, Chu Kuangren felt that his soul energy had increased a lot. No, it was not only his soul energy, but his perception and understanding of the Tao had also increased. This 9 revolutions 3 elements refinement technique is incredible. Not only can it improve soul energy, but it can also improve one's perception. Wait a minute. Does that mean that when I study techniques in the future, there will be 3 of me? Chu Kuangren suddenly thought of something and was speechless. He channeled the soul refinement technique and wanted to proceed to the 4th revolution. However, after half a day, all that was produced was a gray ball of soul fire. That was the soul fire of the earth soul. However, there was still a long way to go before it could take shape. Have I reached my limit? Chu Kuangren murmured. He could quickly complete the first 3 revolutions because his soul energy had reached the requirements, but the 4th revolution would not be so easy. In order to refine an earth soul, he had to double his current soul power. 3 souls meant 3 times the amount of soul force. Being able to quickly cultivate the first 3 revolutions is already a huge gain. I'll take my time with the 4th revolution, Chu Kuangren said. His soul returned to his physical body and he opened his eyes. His emperor's thought surged and quickly covered the entire Yanwu tribe. From the conversations of the people, he found out that he had spent a month cultivating the 9 revolutions 3 elements refinement technique. Wind Valley had already returned, and they even brought a group of cultivators with them to learn alchemy and equipment crafting. I guess I'll meet them then. Chu Kuangren walked out of his room and found the Yanwu tribe and Wind Valley. Song Sage, you're finally out. The Yanwu tribe and Wind Valley greeted him. They did not know if it was an illusion, but Wind Valley felt that although Chu Kuangren still had no cultivation, he seemed to have become more mysterious. Good heavens! It's only been a month and there's already such a change. The sage is indeed a sage. Wind Valley's eyes were filled with respect. Yes, brother Wind Valley, I've heard about the people you've brought. From now on, let them stay in the Yanwu tribe to learn alchemy and equipment crafting. Chu Kuangren smiled. Thank you, sage. After that, Chu Kuangren went to meet the cultivators from Wind Valley. All of these cultivators were the cream of the crop among the humans. If they were to be placed in the afterworld, they would all be top-notch sky prides. Chu Kuangren frowned and said, alchemy and equipment crafting are not as simple as qi refinement. You need to invest a lot of time and effort into it. If you're distracted, you'll only achieve nothing. Hence, this will delay your progress in qi refinement. I hope you'll consider this carefully before you make a decision. Upon hearing that, the cultivators looked at each other and hesitated. Song Sage, is there no way to have the best of both worlds? Unless you're an extremely talented person, I suggest that you focus on one path of cultivation. If you feel that you're not suited for qi refinement, you can try out equipment crafting or alchemy, Chu Kuangren said. Looks like I've been too greedy, Wind Valley said. You can't have your cake and eat it too. How can you have everything you want? After all, how many Song sages were there in this world? I want to stay here. At that moment, a cultivator said. It was a young brawny man. His cultivation level was not considered outstanding among the group. In fact, it could even be said that he was at the bottom. He held an iron sword in his hand and looked at Chu Kuangren with an infatuated look in his eyes. He then said seriously, Sage, I want to learn equipment crafting. Chapter 775. Sage, I want to learn how to craft equipment. The young man said to Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren looked at the young man and narrowed his eyes. He felt that this man looked familiar. Where had he seen him before? The more he looked at him, the more familiar he felt. What's your name? My name is Scarlet Sunday, Scarlet Sun. Chu Kuangren remembered now. Wasn't this the Scarlet Sun Taoist master? One of the 24 Taoist masters? Was he the one who taught him how to craft equipment? The affairs of the world were too wonderful. He suddenly remembered that his descendant self-sword was still with him. He wondered how it was doing now. It should have been reforged by now. If you want to learn how to craft equipment, then stay. Chu Kuangren smiled gently. Then some people stayed, while others left. A sage had appeared in the Yanwu tribe. The news spread like wildfire, and countless tribes sent people to investigate. Although only a few of them managed to see Chu Kuangren, the Yanwu tribe's growth was undeniable. The sage's words were confirmed. Time flew by, and a few months had passed. These few months were not long, but the changes that they brought to the Yanwu tribe were unprecedented, comparable to the passage of time. Besides the increase in the number of cultivators, cultivation methods such as alchemy and equipment crafting had greatly improved the cultivation conditions of the cultivators in the tribe. As a result, many human cultivators were attracted to join the tribe. There were 10 major tribes in the firmament star. Among them, the strongest was called the Star Slayer tribe. Although the Yanwu tribe was also one of the 10 major tribes, it was the weakest. However, Chu Kuangren's arrival had increased the strength of the Yanwu tribe by leaps and bounds. Vaguely, they were already catching up to the Star Slayer tribe. In the Star Slayer tribe, a middle-aged man sat on a leather chair. The man was tall and sturdy, and his eyes were bright like the stars. This man was the leader of the Star Slayer tribe, Slayer Star. Slayer Star was extraordinary. He was known as the wisest leader in the history of the human race. Under his leadership, the Star Slayer tribe slowly grew from a small tribe of 1,000 people to the leader of the human race today. Hence, Slayer Star was the most legendary human of this era. But strictly speaking, he was only half a human. Because he was the son of a human god. They were the offspring born from the union of man and God. In this land where humans and gods lived together, the union between humans and gods was not that rare. If some gods fancied some human women, they could also take them as their own. In the eyes of many humans, this was an honor. However, due to the difference in physique between humans and gods, it was basically impossible for their union to produce offspring. However, Zhanxing was an accident. In the long history of the human race, there was only one case of this happening in the history of the gods. It was precisely because of this uniqueness that Zhanxing had been the center of attention the moment he was born, growing up amidst the expectations of countless people. The gods wanted to use him to control the human race, and the human race saw him as a gift from the gods. They took good care of him, and waited for him to grow up to be their master. Zhanxing did not disappoint them. The bloodline of a god had given him great power, allowing him to easily conquer all the tribes. The bloodline of a human had allowed him to train his chi and cultivate, constantly improving his strength. Not even the gods could do such a thing. Interesting stuff. Zhanxing was currently holding an elixir and a weapon in his hands. His eyes shone brightly. It's said that a sage has appeared in the Yanwu tribe. It looks like that's really the case. Beside him, a muscular man wearing tiger skin said, "Chief, if the Yanwu tribe continues to develop like this, it will definitely become a threat to us in the future. Should we find someone to get rid of that sage?" The muscular man didn't care about the sage. In his eyes, anyone who threatened the chief or threatened his tribe deserved to die. Hearing the muscular man's words, Zhanxing said indifferently, "There's no need for that for now. However, we can fight for this sage. Send someone with generous gifts to the Yanwu tribe, and ask if he's willing to come to our Zhan Star tribe to develop." Not long after, the Zhan Star tribe sent out an emissary. This emissary was very arrogant and didn't care about the development of the Yanwu tribe. In his eyes, although the Yanwu tribe was also one of the 10 major tribes, it was far inferior to the Zhan Star tribe. He walked on the streets of the Yanwu tribe with 2 followers behind him. Looking at the tribesmen dressed in coarse linen clothes around him, his eyes revealed disdain. How can a sage be born in a place like this? He shook his head. People nowadays tend to exaggerate. Just a little bit of merit and they'll be called a sage. How many sages have there been in the human race for so many years? If there really is a sage in this era, it'll be our chief. He's the son of the gods. Only then can he bear the title of sage. When the Yanwu tribe guard who was leading the way heard him, he couldn't help but frown with a dissatisfied look on his face. During this period of time, Chu Kuangren's prestige in the tribe had been growing day by day. Of course, they couldn't stand others slandering him. However, the person in front of him was an emissary from the Zhan Star tribe, which was the largest tribe in the human race. Clang, clang, clang. At that moment, the sound of metal clanking came from somewhere on the street. The Zhan Star emissary frowned and said, "What's that noise? It's so noisy, it's annoying." He walked towards the direction of the sound. All he saw was a brawny man holding a hammer in his hand. He was hammering on a red-hot piece of metal repeatedly. Soon, that piece of metal gradually changed shape and became a long strip. "What are they doing?" "They're refining weapons," the Yanwu tribe guard said. The Zhan Star emissary looked around and noticed that there were several racks with weapons on them. Any one of those weapons was more outstanding than the best weapons in the Zhan Star tribe. There was a sharp glint on them that sent chills down one's spine. There were also strange patterns on them. He gulped, picked up a sword, and injected his spiritual energy into it. A sword ray suddenly shot out from the sword, and with a casual slash, it tore a deep sword mark on the ground. The Zhan Star emissary's pupils shrank. In the past, he would have to use at least 30% of his strength to leave a sword mark like that. However, he did it without using even 1% of his strength just now. This weapon is too amazing. He looked at the weapons on display in front of him, as if he was looking at a treasure. Then he picked up a long sword and tried it. It also had the same effect of increasing his spiritual energy. "What are you doing?" Qi Yang, who was refining weapons, glanced at the Zhan Star emissary. The Jean Star emissary immediately said respectfully, "Sir, may I ask if this is the so-called refining method?" "That's right. Are there many refiners like you, sir?" "It's all right. I've only learned it not long ago," Chi Yang said casually. Hearing this, the Jean Star emissary was dumbfounded. "I've only learned it not long ago, yet I can already create a bunch of divine weapons. What kind of level has the legendary sage who created this refining method reached?" At this moment, the contempt in his heart was swept away, and he felt unprecedented fear towards this sage who he had never met before. If such a person can't be used by the Jean Star tribe, he will definitely become the tribe's biggest enemy. Chapter 776. After witnessing the wonders of the equipment refinement technique, the Star Slayer envoy was shocked when he saw someone refining pills along the way. He became more and more fearful of Chu Kuangren, whom he had never met before. Soon he arrived at the tribe's great hall. Here he met the Yanwu tribe's leader, Yanwu. "Greetings, envoy." "Greetings, tribe leader Yanwu. I'm here to meet the sage of your tribe. Can you introduce me to him?" "Of course." Yanwu nodded. Not long after, Chu Kuangren found out about the Star Slayer envoy. When the Star Slayer envoy saw the skinny young man in front of him, he could not help but be confused. In his mind, the sage who could create the equipment refinement technique and alchemy technique should be a sage-like old man. How could it be a young man? Moreover, he did not sense any traces of qi refinement from Chu Kuangren. Were the techniques of alchemy and equipment refinement created by this person? If not for Yanwu's respectful attitude towards Chu Kuangren, he would have suspected that Chu Kuangren was lying to him. "Are you Tsang sage?" "Greetings, envoy. I'm Tsang, but I'm not worthy of being called a sage." If the equipment refinement technique and alchemy technique were really invented by you, then you're worthy of the title of sage. Yanwu frowned when he heard the Star Slayer envoy's words. "Envoy, what do you mean? The equipment refinement technique and alchemy technique were created by Tsang sage. Are you suspecting something?" The Star Slayer envoy smiled. "Yanwu tribe leader, you misunderstand me. I don't mean to offend you. It's just that Tsang sage's age is really hard to believe. That's why I asked." The equipment refinement technique and alchemy technique have never been seen before. There's no doubt that it was created by our young master. Green-robed envoy scoffed. "It's unheard of in the human race, but not necessarily in the celestial race." The Star Slayer envoy said meaningfully, "Envoy, are you trying to say that I'm related to the deities?" Chu Kuangren chuckled. "Ridiculous. Everyone knows that our young master is a god slayer, yet you think he's related to the deities?" Green-robed envoy sneered. "All right, let's not talk about this anymore. This time, I have come under the orders of my tribe's leader to invite Song Shengxian to work in my Star Slayer tribe." Yanwu frowned slightly. "Good heavens, he's here to snatch my corner. I appreciate Leader Star Slayer's good intentions, but I'm having a good time here, so I won't be going over there to chat. Song Shengxian, you should know that the Slayer Star tribe is the strongest tribe of the human race. Only there will you be able to display your talents to your heart's content. Furthermore, you should have heard of the origins of my leader, the Slayer Star tribe. He is the son of the human god, the spokesperson of the god. As long as he speaks, the matter of you killing the god will also be resolved." The Star Slayer envoy said patiently. However, Chu Kuangren did not budge at all. He did not say anything more to the other party either. Instead, he simply said to Yanwu, "Clan leader, I still have some matters to attend to. I'll leave the envoy to you." Then he left with Qing Yi. "Song, are you really going to be so ungrateful?" the Star Slayer emissary said to Chu Kuangren from behind. However, Chu Kuangren had already left without looking back. "Emissary, is there anything else? If you don't, then please leave," Yanwu said indifferently. It would be strange if Chu Kuangren had a good attitude after trying to snatch his corner right in front of him. "Yanwu tribe, you're on your own now." The Star Slayer emissary snorted before he flicked his sleeves and left. Inside the Star Slayer tribe. That's what happened. The Star Slayer emissary recounted his meeting with Chu Kuangren. They actually rejected him? The Star Slayer emissary sat on a chair, his fingers subconsciously tapping on the chair's armrest. He said indifferently, "Tell me, what do you guys think? What do you guys think? In my opinion, we should just send out our troops. I don't believe that the Yinwu tribe alone can do anything," the muscular man in the tiger pelt said. His body emanated a towering ferocious chi. One look and anyone could tell that he was a man who had experienced hundreds of battles. "That's right, it's time for this tribal separatist situation to end. Now that our Star Slayer tribe has a strong army, it's time to swallow up the other tribes," another white-robed man said. When the Star Slayer emissary heard that, he looked at the Yinwu tribe's emissary. "You've been to the Yinwu tribe. What's your opinion?" The emissary pondered for a moment before he said, "Alchemy and equipment refinement techniques are not to be underestimated. Moreover, although Tsang is young, if these two techniques were really created by him, he's definitely not someone to be trifled with. In time, the Yinwu tribe will become a huge threat to us. Do you also agree to send out your troops?" "Yes." The Star Slayer emissary pondered. He was not afraid of the Yinwu tribe. It was just that the Star Slayer tribe's current strength was more than enough to deal with one tribe. However, there were 10 major human tribes. If he were to attack the Yinwu tribe, the other tribes might take the opportunity to attack. After all, the Star Slayer tribe had been growing stronger over the years. It had long agitated the other tribes, making them restless. "What are you hesitating about?" At that moment, an indifferent voice was heard. Suddenly, a golden pillar of light descended from the sky. A vast divine aura enveloped the entire area. Apart from Star Slayer, everyone else was pressed to the ground by this divine aura, and could not move at all. Within the beam of light, a figure gradually appeared. He wore golden armor and held a golden spear in his hand. His stern and cold face exuded a sense of majesty. "Greetings, Father." Star Slayer hurriedly stood up and bowed. The person before him was one of the 33 Master Gods, the Vajra Master God. He was also Star Slayer's father. Years ago, when the Vajra Master God traveled the world, he passed by a tribe. In order to entertain him, the tribe sent out the most beautiful woman in the tribe to spend a night with him. Who knew that Star Slayer would be born that night? He was the only human in countless years, the son of God. In the past decade or so, the Vajra Master God was also very surprised when he learned of Star Slayer's existence. At first, he did not pay much attention to it. However, later on, he realized that Star Slayer contained immense potential. Having divine power and the ability to cultivate was the best weapon for him to conquer the human race. Hence, he had been deliberately nurturing Star Slayer. Yes, Song of the Yinwu tribe has killed many gods consecutively. His existence has provoked the authority of the gods. So the gods have decided to grant him and his tribe death. I'll leave this matter to you. The Vajra Master God said. Star Slayer was very powerful. He could be said to be one of the most powerful beings aside from the Master Gods. He could even fight a few rounds with the lower-ranked Master Gods. Sending him to fight Song was the common decision of the gods. They wanted to use Star Slayer to see what kind of person Chu Kuangren was. The gods will, huh? I understand now. Star Slayer nodded slightly. Initially, he was worried that the other tribes would take advantage of the situation to attack Yinwu tribe. However, it was the gods who sent him to fight Yinwu tribe. No matter how bold the other tribes were, they would not dare to offend the gods. Soon, news of the Star Slayer tribe receiving the gods will to fight Yinwu tribe spread throughout the world. Chapter 777. The news of the Star Slayer tribe attacking the Yinwu tribe quickly spread throughout the land, and the Yinwu tribe naturally received the news as well. For a moment, the entire Yinwu tribe was in a state of panic. Even if the Yinwu tribe's strength had increased a lot, the Star Slayer tribe was still the strongest among the 10 tribes. They had a strong army, and no human tribe could compete with them. More importantly, the leader of the Star Slayer tribe was the son of a human deity. In the eyes of the people, he was the representative of the deities. Going against him was almost like going against the deities. Facing the deities, their morale was already weakened by 70 to 80% before they even fought. How could they fight? Leader, what should we do now? Yes, the Star Slayer tribe has more than 10 million warriors, and many of them are cultivators. The Star Slayer himself has divine strength and is invincible. I'm afraid we're no match for them. Yes, I heard that a few years ago, a cultivator went to find the Star Slayer, but he was cut in half by the wind cutter sword that was given by the deities. He did not even have the strength to fight back. Why don't we surrender? Surrender my ass. I'd rather fight them than be a coward. But they still want to fight even if they know they're going to die. This is called reckless, and it's not worth it to lose your life for nothing. How do you know we can't win if we haven't fought them before? The higher-ups of the Yinwu tribe discussed among themselves. Among them, the number one warrior, Atu, was arguing with an old man. One of them wanted to fight, and the other wanted to surrender. Yinwu felt a headache coming on as he watched. I didn't expect this day to come so soon, Yinwu murmured. When he invited Chu Kuangren to join the Yinwu tribe, he already had a premonition that they would one day go against the deities. However, this day came too soon. Moreover, they were not facing the deities, but the Star Slayer tribe, which was also a human. It was obvious that they wanted them to kill each other. Everyone, please calm down. At that moment, a cold voice rang out. A young man in a white cloak walked in. When he spoke, there was a mysterious Taoist fluctuation. Everyone's restless emotions were slowly calmed down. It was Chu Kuangren. Greetings, Sage Tsang. Does the sage have any countermeasures against the Star Slayer tribe? Chu Kuangren chuckled at the crowd's questions. It's not really a response. I'll just deal with whatever comes my way. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other. What kind of response was that? Let's deal with the ever-changing by remaining constant, Chu Kuangren added. With his current strength, he wasn't afraid of any tribesman coming to find trouble with him. In fact, if someone came to find trouble with him, he would be happy to see it happen. It was the perfect time for him to fight and make a name for himself. He was going to be a king in the future. Just the name of a sage was not enough. What he needed was a solid battle record. Only by displaying sufficient strength could he consolidate his current prestige. Song Shengxian, do you really have the ability to deal with the Star Slayer tribe? Yanwu asked curiously. Rest assured, Patriarch. Chu Kuangren chuckled. He activated his psyche power and activated the illusory 7 emotions song. This cultivation method could manipulate one's emotions. Under his influence, the panic in everyone's eyes gradually disappeared and was replaced by determination. We believe in Sage Tsang. Yes, the Star Slayer tribe will definitely win. The other side. In the God-defying pavilion. Wind Valley, the Star Slayer tribe is going to attack the Yinwu tribe. Go see if Sage Tsang needs any help. The Star Slayer tribe is going to attack Sage Tsang now? We can't just sit back and watch. Yes. Wind Valley nodded solemnly. Star Slayer, is that the son of God? Alright, I'll go check it out. There was no time to lose. Wind Valley immediately headed to the Yinwu tribe. At first, he thought that he would see a depressed tribe. After all, everyone was about to face the strongest of the 10 major tribes, the Star Slayer tribe. It was normal for them to be afraid. However, when he arrived at the Yinwu tribe, he realized that everyone was doing what they were supposed to do. Everything was orderly and thriving. There was no sign of danger at all. Has the Yinwu tribe not received the news? Wind Valley asked curiously. That should not be the case. The news had already spread throughout the land. He grabbed a passing cultivator and asked curiously, Fellow Taoist, do you know that the Star Slayer tribe is going to attack you soon? Of course I do. The news has already spread. The cultivator looked at Wind Valley strangely as if to say, It can't be, it can't be. You don't even know about such a big thing? If that's the case, aren't you afraid? Wind Valley asked again. With Sage Tsang here, what do we have to be afraid of? Besides, what's the use of being afraid? If we were afraid, wouldn't the Star Slayer tribe come to attack us? That's impossible. The sage said that the best way to eliminate fear is to face it. As long as we face it calmly and work together, there's nothing we can't overcome. The cultivator raised his head and puffed out his chest as he spoke in a natural manner. When he mentioned the sage, his eyes unconsciously revealed a look of worship. Wind Valley was a little confused. This cultivator's words made him unable to refute. What did the sage do? Did he brainwash these people? Fear was the most ancient emotion of humans. However, in the face of the Star Slayer tribe's attack, Wind Valley did not see any fear in the eyes of the people from the Yenwu tribe. It was as if they had been blocked by something. Wind Valley found Yenwu. He carefully observed Yenwu and realized that he was not as optimistic as the others about the Star Slayer tribe's attack. Although he did not feel any fear, he could still see the seriousness in his expression. Wind Valley breathed a sigh of relief. Is this how a normal person should react? If even the higher-ups of the Yenwu tribe were so optimistic, Wind Valley wondered if the tribe was finished. Where's Sagetsong? He's resting in the yard. All right, I'll wait for him here then. Wind Valley said. In a yard, under the shade of a tree, Qingyi was cultivating. Beside her, Chu Kuangren made a deck chair out of tree branches. He lay on it with his eyes closed. These few days, the news of the Star Slayer tribe's attack had caused the people of the Yenwu tribe to panic. Fortunately, Chu Kuangren appeared to calm the people and used the 7 Emotions illusory song to control their emotions. That was the reason why they did not cause any trouble. As for the higher-ups of the Yenwu tribe, he did not overdo it with the 7 Emotions illusory song. After all, the lower-ranked people of a tribe could maintain a positive and optimistic attitude, and even blindly follow others. However, as the higher-ups of the tribe, the leaders had to remain clear-headed and not be too affected. After this incident, it could be said that he had gained a deeper understanding of the application of the illusory 7 Emotions song. Soon he met with Wind Valley. When the other party asked him what help he needed, he only asked the people of the God-defying pavilion to stay put. Now was not the time to expose the human tribe's true strength. Chapter 778. I don't want to admit it, but the Slayer Star is very powerful. It can be said that on this piece of land, other than the overgods, no other deities, humans, or wild beasts are a match for him. Not only does this person possess divine strength, but he is also proficient in chi refinement. Divine strength aside, his chi refinement strength alone has already reached the level of an upper heavenly honorable. Song Shengxian, are you sure you can defeat him? Fenrir said solemnly. He glanced at Chu Kuangren. There was still no trace of chi refinement on his opponent. Although mind power was very mysterious, Fenrir still felt a little uncertain. Of course. Chu Kuangren smiled calmly. A Slayer Star was not worthy of his attention. Not long after, the vast army of the Slayer Star tribe was approaching the warrior Flame tribe. From afar, there were soldiers armed with swords and spears, mounted on all kinds of wild beasts, and even people beating drums. The sound of drums was like thunder, shaking the heavens and earth. The might of this army was boundless. Before they even got close to the warrior Flame tribe, their ferocious chi had already engulfed them. The guarding Cheong Chi, Thunder Beast, and other wild beasts could not help but tremble in fear. They had no intention of fighting back. How terrifying! Has the human race developed to this stage? Over the years, with the popularization of cultivation techniques, the human race is no longer as weak as they used to be. I just didn't expect them to develop to this stage. How surprising! The few wild beasts were conversing. Behind them was the Yenwu tribe's army that was also on standby, and the one who stood at the forefront was none other than Chu Kuangren. He looked into the distance and vaguely saw a magnificent golden chariot in front of the Slayer Star tribe. The chariot was pulled by 9 Cheongqi beasts, and on the chariot sat a mighty man dressed in golden armor. He sat upright on a large chair made of animal skin, holding a large sword in his hand, and his eyes were slightly closed. He sat very steadily like a statue. Although his eyes were closed, his aura was extremely terrifying. Looks like he's the Slayer Star. Shall AI analyze it? Chu Kuangren said in his heart. The spirit of omniscience was activated. Information about the Slayer Star kept appearing in his mind. The human god's child. With the combination of the King Kong deity's strength and chi refinement, it's no wonder he's undefeatable. Chu Kuangren chuckled. If Chu Kuangren had not appeared, Zhanxing would have had a high chance of becoming the leader of the human race. Other than his strength, there was also the fact that he had the support of the deities behind him. Based on that alone, not many people could compete with him. Even the current god-defying pavilion did not have enough power. After a while, the Star Slayer tribe's army arrived in front of the Yenwu tribe. There were at least a few million people. An army of this scale was very rare in this era, not to mention that there were many cultivators among them. The people of the Yenwu tribe gripped their weapons tightly. Those with weaker mental fortitude were so scared that their faces were pale, and their bodies could not help but tremble. Can we really win against such an army? Some of the soldiers' hearts were already wavering. Even Yenwu and Fenrir could not help but wear a solemn expression. Everyone, don't be afraid. We still have Tsang Shengxian, a soldier said. Hearing this, everyone looked at the white figure standing at the front. Chu Kuangren had a white cloak draped over his shoulders. His body looked a little frail, but his posture was more imposing than anyone else's. Her posture gave off a reassuring feeling. The sage is indeed a sage. He can still be so calm in the face of an army of this scale. It's as if he doesn't care about them at all. That's right, he's too amazing. Everyone looked at Chu Kuangren's back with admiration in their eyes. The sage's calmness makes us feel more at ease. Yenwu chuckled. It's just a small scene. Chu Kuangren smiled. Hearing his words, Yenwu and Fenrir's mouths twitched a few times. Was this considered a small scene? What was a big scene then? The sage was indeed a sage. There was no way they could compare. In fact, Chu Kuangren did not care about the army in front of him at all. Whether it was in terms of size, strength, equipment, or any other aspect, this army was not worth mentioning to him. After seeing the hundreds of millions of soldiers and warships in the extraterrestrial battlefield, this army was no different from playing house to him. The Star Slayer tribe's army stopped in front of the Yenwu tribe. A man rode out on a ferocious beast and said loudly, "We are here on the orders of the deities to attack the Yenwu tribe. However, the deities are merciful. As long as you surrender and hand over the god Slayer Tsang, the deities promise to let you live." His words caused a commotion in the crowd. Yenwu stood up and said, "Sage Tsang taught us human alchemy and equipment refinement techniques. He also saved the Yenwu tribe's life. We will never hand him over to the deities. If you want to fight, then let's fight." Fight, fight. The Yenwu tribe's army roared. Chu Kuangren preached in the Yenwu tribe, teaching them cultivation techniques, equipment refinement, and alchemy. He also taught them some survival experiences such as smelting, weaving, terrace farming, irrigation, and so on. In the Yenwu tribe, from the cultivators to the commoners, everyone respected him. It could even be said that Chu Kuangren had successfully replaced the deities and become their new faith, asking them to surrender their faith. How was that possible? Stubborn. The person who persuaded them to surrender snorted and walked back to the army. Then a person walked out from the army. That person was wearing a tiger's skin and had a fierce aura. "Since you refused to surrender, then die. I am the Star Slayer tribe's Husha. Who dares to come out and fight me?" Yenwu's eyes were solemn. This person is the Star Slayer tribe's #1 warrior, Husha. He's strong enough to become an emperor. An emperor was considered an expert no matter what era it was. In the original Yenwu tribe, there was only one emperor, Yenwu. "I'll go and fight him." Beside Yenwu, Atu, who was wearing a black armor and holding a long spear, said eagerly, "Atu, you've just become an emperor. I'm afraid you're no match for this person." Yenwu was still worried. Atu, the Yenwu tribe's #1 warrior, had become an emperor under Chu Kuangren's guidance. However, his cultivation level was still far from being comparable to Husha, who had been an emperor for many years. "Let him try." Chu Kuangren chuckled. "Ha, even the sage has faith in me." Atu laughed. He took a step forward and arrived in front of Husha. The emperor's chi on his body circulated, and a domineering aura erupted. "Someone tell me your name." Husha sneered. "Yenwu tribe's #1 warrior, Atu." Atu said loudly, "Judging by your aura, you must have just broken through to the emperor realm not too long ago. With your strength, you're no match for me." Husha sneered as he slashed out with a long saber in his hand. Atu stabbed out with his long spear too. The long sword and long spear clashed. Even though Atu's cultivation level was not as high as Husha's, he was still evenly matched with his opponent. How's this possible? Husha's expression changed. Then he roared and swung the long sword in his hand, clashing with Atu's long spear. Husha's battle technique was brilliant. It did not take long for him to find an opening and slash Atu's body, sending him flying. That's all you got. Husha snorted. Are you tickling me, your grandpa Atu? At that moment, Atu stood up and said unscathed. Upon seeing this, the soldiers of the Star Slasher tribe widened their eyes. Chapter 779. How can this be? This person took a strike from General Baleful Tiger, and is completely fine. This is impossible. Yeah, how did he do it? There's actually such an expert in the Yenwu tribe. The people of the Star Slayer tribe were shocked. Husha himself was in disbelief. Then he thought of something and looked at Atu's armor. This must be the legendary refining method. Unbelievable. He had figured everything out. The opponent was able to block his strike because of the protection of the armor. Also, the opponent's cultivation base was clearly lower than his, but they were evenly matched. It was most likely because of the spear in his hand. This is the sage's method. Atu patted the armor on his body and chuckled. In terms of cultivation base, he was inferior to Husha. But in terms of equipment, even 10 Husha couldn't compare to him. Let's see how many strikes you can take. Husha snorted coldly and once again charged forward with his long blade. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of metal clashing rang out incessantly. The two of them fought until dust flew everywhere. Dao patterns weaved in the air, and a powerful aura rippled outwards. Boom. A figure was sent flying while vomiting blood. It was Husha. Just now, Atu didn't retreat or evade, forcefully taking a strike from him in exchange for an opening and heavily injuring him. Damn it, damn it. Husha was enraged. The baleful chi on his body surged crazily. He was the number 1 warrior of the Star Slayer tribe, the strongest person apart from Zhanxing. Yet he was suppressed by a guy who had just stepped into the Emperor realm not long ago. Moreover, it was in front of his army. Husha, stand down. Zhanxing, who was sitting on the chariot, said. Chief, I can still fight. Husha said hatefully. I said stand down. Zhanxing's tone became colder. Husha's heart trembled, not daring to disobey. He looked at Atu unwillingly and returned to the army. Although he didn't want to admit it, he knew that if he continued to fight, he might not be able to gain the upper hand. Chief Zhanxing, your tribe's number 1 warrior has been defeated. Why? Do you want to come down personally? Atu pointed his spear at Zhanxing and said arrogantly. Defeating Husha gave him a lot of confidence. Ignorant ant, you're courting death. Zhanxing said indifferently. Then he suddenly opened his eyes and a majestic force instantly gushed out like a tsunami. The strength of this force caused Atu's pupils to constrict. He couldn't block it. He absolutely could not block this power. Even the armor he was wearing didn't give him the slightest sense of security. Was this the power of the strongest tribe leader? It was too terrifying. They weren't even on the same level. I will die. Atu's pupils trembled, and he was unable to move. He could only watch as the force was about to land on him. Just when he thought he was going to die, a gentle breeze suddenly blew past him. Miraculously, that overwhelming force actually dissipated completely in front of this gentle breeze. Atu heaved a sigh of relief. His body went limp and he almost collapsed. But at this moment, a hand was placed on his shoulder from behind, supporting him. A cold voice sounded. Everyone is watching. If you fall like this, it will be very embarrassing. Songsheng Sage. Atu turned around and saw Chu Kuangren's calm face. An unprecedented sense of security suddenly surged into his heart. He knew that Chu Kuangren must have saved him just now. All right, leave this to me. You can go back first. Chu Kuangren said. Songsheng Sage, you must be careful. All right. Atu turned around and returned to the Yenwu tribe. Now Chu Kuangren was the only one left to face the million-strong army. Compared to them, he was too insignificant. To be able to block my attack, Songsheng Sage lives up to his name, Zhanxing said as he sat on the chariot. Then he said, I've seen the weapon crafting technique that you've invented. To think that it could allow an ordinary emperor to defeat the strongest warrior under my command. It's indeed an impressive technique. Thank you for the compliment. It's a pity that you're an enemy of the gods, so I can't use you. That's why you can't continue to live. But don't worry, I'll make good use of the alchemy and weapon crafting techniques that you've taught me. Hey, you don't have to worry about that. What's wrong? Does Zhongsheng Sage really think that he can block my million-strong elite army? Zhanxing said. The army behind him seemed to be responding to his words as they roared. Kill, kill, kill. In an instant, the battle cries reverberated through the clouds and shook the earth. Chu Kuangren chuckled. How would I know if I don't try? He took a step forward. In an instant, an extremely terrifying murderous qi roared out and messed up the clouds. The million-strong army felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. Everyone looked at Chu Kuangren with fear in their eyes. It was as if they could see countless vengeful spirits and evil spirits on this man's body, which had turned into a scene of Azura purgatory. They had never seen such a murderous qi before. Even if they combined the murderous qi of their millions of people, they would not be able to match up to a tenth of his opponents. It was too terrifying. Just how many people had this man killed? They felt that if there was a god of massacre in this world, then this man before them was definitely worthy of it. You're all too naive to compete with me in terms of murderous qi, Chu Kuangren said calmly. He looked at the million-strong army before him without a trace of emotion in his eyes. It was as if he was looking at millions of weeds. He had killed too many living beings in the extraterrestrial battlefield. Too many to count. Although it was not something to boast about, he dared to say that no one in the firmament star could compare to him in terms of killing. On the battlefield, only the sound of the wind could be heard. The million-strong army was silent as they were suppressed by a single person's murderous qi. One of the soldiers could no longer withstand the terrifying murderous qi, and fainted on the spot. Then the soldiers fell one after another. Even the cultivators could not withstand it. In the end, the only ones who could withstand it were those who were mentally tough, and had at least reached the sage realm. As for the others, they had long fallen to the ground. Chu Kuangren stood there without doing anything. All he did was release his murderous qi, and it was enough to defeat the million-strong army. The Yangwu tribe members behind him were dumbfounded. Is this Zhongsheng Sage's power? It's too powerful. What a terrifying murderous qi. Did Zhongsheng Sage kill every living being in the firmament star? Otherwise, where did he get this murderous qi from? How is this possible? This must be some kind of power. Just like alchemy, Zhongsheng Sage always surprises us. As the crowd discussed, they looked at the white figure that was not tall but was unusually majestic. Their admiration for him was obvious. Wind Valley Yinwu tribe, and the others looked at each other. Initially, they were worried that Chu Kuangren would use some method to deal with the Star Slayer tribe. But now, there was only one thought in their minds. This battle was over. Chapter 780. What kind of person is he? Zhanxing stared at Chu Kuangren with a never-before-seen look of seriousness in his eyes. He clearly did not have any cultivation base, yet his frail body could unleash a murderous aura that could intimidate millions of people. Despite being called a sage, he still had such a murderous aura around him. Allow me to face you in person, Zhanxing said as he slowly stood up with the golden greatsword in his hand. A majestic surge of Emperor's qi instantly erupted. Hu Sha and the others looked at him with hope in their eyes. Our leader is about to make his move. That's great. I think only our leader can suppress this person. They had full confidence in Zhanxing, seeing that Zhanxing was about to make his move. The people from the Flame Warrior tribe looked grim too. The son of human god is finally going to make his move. Zhanxing was a legendary name among the humans. Not even the celestial tribe dared to underestimate him. He was the only child born from the union of a human and a celestial in countless years. He was blessed with both divine power and qi refinement. Chu Kuangren looked at him with interest. Let this battle decide who among us is qualified to be the leader of the human tribe. Zhanxing yelled and attacked with his sword. With a single slash, a majestic golden sword qi surged. At the same time, Taoist patterns spread from his body, and combined with the emperor's qi to form a small world that enveloped Chu Kuangren within. An invisible force of suppression erupted. I don't think anyone below the level of a Taoist master can withstand this attack, Chu Kuangren said as his mind power circulated. When the majestic palm qi reached him, it automatically dissipated. It did not even lift the hem of his shirt. Hu Sha and the others could not help but widen their eyes in shock. How is this mind power possible? Zhanxing could not help but be shocked. It was no secret that Chu Kuangren was a member of the Transcendent Tribe. However, the problem was that Zhanxing had met the leader of the Transcendent Tribe before, and the leader's mind power was nothing compared to his. Hence, he did not take Chu Kuangren seriously at first. However, the mind power that Chu Kuangren displayed now was many times stronger than the leader of the Transcendent Tribe. They were not on the same level. Your qi refinement level is considered not bad in this era, but it's a shame that it's still too weak. Chu Kuangren shook his head and said. Then he said, show me your divine power too. Let me see the true power of the Son of God. Zhanxing felt an invisible pressure enveloping him. This kind of oppressive feeling. Vajra divine power. With a cold shout, Zhanxing's body emitted a golden radiance. Boundless divine might spread out from his body. Divine power Emperor aura. The two types of energy fused on Zhanxing's body, turning into a peerlessly tyrannical energy. Its might was so strong that it shook everything within millions of miles. The entire earth was shaking violently. Even the void was blasted apart. The leader is getting serious. This is power comparable to a sovereign's. Hu Sha and the others stared at Zhanxing's back with bright eyes. In all these years, they had rarely seen Zhanxing use his divine power. He was almost invincible in qi refinement alone. Meanwhile, the power that erupted from the combination of divine power and qi refinement was comparable to a sovereign. No one in the entire human race could compare to him. Song, you're the first person in all these years that forced me to use my full power. To show my respect, I'll use my strongest attack. Are you ready? Zhanxing said in a low voice. Come. Chu Kuangren said calmly. Zhanxing slowly raised the golden greatsword in his hand. A gust of wind blew. The wind was mixed with golden qi that tore the earth apart. The wind grew stronger and stronger. The golden qi became denser and denser. Gradually, a golden tornado formed around Zhanxing, and its terrifying might tore the void apart. Vajra tempest slash. Zhanxing's eyes lit up. With a slash of his sword, a golden tornado swept out majestically. Everyone watching the storm grew shocked. The power behind this attack was already comparable to that of a overgod. Across all of firmament, there were practically not many cultivators who could survive this attack. Is that all you've got? Chu Kuangren chuckled. He slowly lifted his finger and gently tapped the void. In an instant, countless Taoist patterns spread out from his fingertips. His mind power surged as well. His mind power and Taoist patterns combined to form a lesser realm, which Zhanxing's lesser realm was instantly shattered. The moment the golden tornado was enveloped by the lesser realm, it calmed down and eventually turned into a gentle breeze that blew past Chu Kuangren. Zhanxing was dumbfounded. Everyone was dumbfounded too. That's it? That's his strongest attack. Impossible, this is impossible. Zhanxing started to doubt his life. Ever since he was born, his power had always been smooth sailing, and he had never encountered any setbacks. How could this be? His strongest attack had actually been neutralized by the other party with just a wave of his hand. How was this possible? No, I don't believe it. Zhanxing's mind exploded. He charged towards Chu Kuangren with the golden greatsword in his hand and slashed at his head. However, his sword was blocked by an invisible barrier when it got close to Chu Kuangren. It stopped in midair. Ripples spread out in the void. The combination of divine power and qi refinement can indeed increase your strength by a lot, but that's all it can do. Chu Kuangren said calmly. He slowly pointed a finger, and a strong psychic wave gathered at the tip of his finger. Then he gently touched the golden sword. Crack, crack, a crisp sound was heard. Cracks appeared on the wind cutter greatsword, which was rumored to have been bestowed by the gods. Finally, with a snap, it shattered into pieces. The mind power continued to spread and hit Zhang Xing's body. The golden armor on his body could not escape the fate of being destroyed as well. It exploded and Zhang Xing was sent flying as he spat out a mouthful of blood and crashed into a mountain in the distance, kicking up a huge cloud of dust. He lay in the crater with his armor broken, and only a few pieces of rags were left on his body. His hair was messy and messy. This is impossible, this is impossible. Zhang Xing kept mumbling to himself. He could not believe what had just happened. Not only him, but everyone else was the same as well. Zhang Xing was a legendary name. Almost no one in the human race could match up to him. However, in front of Chu Kuangren, he could not resist at all. Song Shengxian, this is too powerful. Can the mind power really be this powerful? Yanwu, Fenrir, and the other strong cultivators who were secretly observing all stared at Chu Kuangren's back with their mouths agape. The Yanwu tribe's army, on the other hand, was extremely excited. Song, Song, Song. They were chanting Chu Kuangren's name with fanatical faith in their eyes. Chu Kuangren patted his cloak and smoothed out his hair. He then looked up at the sky without saying anything. With a surge of his mind power, a violent gust of wind with thousands of mysterious Taoist patterns swept out and shattered the clouds. In an instant, a divine light flashed within the clouds. Chapter 781. Divine light flickered in the clouds. A golden figure appeared, exuding boundless divine might. When everyone saw that figure, their faces changed. Even the cultivators of the reverse god pavilion, who were secretly observing, couldn't help but look serious. A god and a sovereign at that. One of the 33 chief gods, the Vajra chief god. As expected, even the gods are paying attention to this battle. They've even sent out master gods. How surprising. How is Sage Tsang going to deal with this? Master gods were the most powerful existences in this world. For countless years, master gods had ruled over the world, and no one had ever dared to defy them. In the distance, on the godly mountain, the overgods were also paying close attention to Chu Kuangren. There was a light screen in front of them, and it showed the scene of Chu Kuangren facing off against the Vajra Master deity. Do you guys think that Song can handle the Vajra Master God? The Flame Master God said indifferently. No one can resist the power of a Lord God, let alone a human. The Yanwu tribe is destined to perish today. That's right, the dignity of a god cannot be challenged. It's just that I didn't expect this Song to be able to defeat Zhang Xing. In the end, he's just a bastard. The sovereigns were all discussing amongst themselves. Very few master gods believed that Song was a match for the Vajra Master God. Within the Yanwu tribe, the Vajra Master deity stared at Chu Kuangren with a cold, murderous intent on his stern face. No one can challenge the godly aura and continue living, and you're no exception. Human Song, are you ready to die? Sovereign, don't waste words. Make your move. Die. The Vajra overlord gently shook the golden spear in his hand, and the potency of the divine weapon erupted. A ray of golden chi surged towards Chu Kuangren. Just this strike alone was already not weaker than Zhang Xing's full-powered strike from before. Everywhere the strength chi passed, the space would shatter inch by inch. Break. Chu Kuangren gently tapped his finger. The golden energy burst like a bubble in an instant. When the Vajra Master God saw this, his expression froze. Sure enough, the person in front of him was using telekinesis. However, this was the first time he had seen such strong telekinesis. This person was a strong enemy. The Vajra Master God retracted his contempt. Vajra divine power, heart-shattering spear. The Vajra overlord took a step forward and arrived in front of Chu Kuangren. The spear in his hand stabbed out as his divine power and Taoist patterns merged together. That spear was aimed directly at Chu Kuangren's heart. Even a lord-level existence would die from that attack. World lock. The psyche power combined with the small world and turned into a chain. Just as the spear was about to hit Chu Kuangren's back, it bound the golden spear so that it could not get any closer. Small world energy. He's not a chi refinement cultivator, yet he's able to use chi refinement techniques. There are way too many secrets on this person. The Vajra chief god thought to himself. But she didn't give him a chance to think too much. Chu Kuangren's mind power had already transformed into an invisible giant hand that blasted outwards. Even a lord like Chu Kuangren was sent flying by the terrifying force. Bang bang bang. The chief god was sent flying, smashing through one mountain range after another like a cannonball. The sight of it made everyone's hearts palpitate. Azure was actually a match for the main gods. In the mountain range, the Vajra chief god's expression was grim. A crack had appeared on the golden armor on his body. Although it was very slight, that armor was a divine weapon that was born together with him. For countless years, no one had ever been able to break it. Chu Kuangren was the first. What a human anomaly. If I don't kill you today, you'll become a huge problem in the future. The murderous intent in the Vajra chief god's eyes almost solidified. He raised his hand to recall his golden spear. However, that spear was now tightly bound by the world lock. No matter how hard he tried, he could not summon it back. ***. He stomped his feet, and the ground almost exploded. In an instant, he shot towards Chu Kuangren like a cannonball. Golden divine power surged around his body, and he emanated an indestructible aura. 10,000 deity calamity fire lotus. Faced with another attack from the Vajra chief god, Chu Kuangren moved. His mind power surged out like a tidal wave. Over the past few days, he had completely mastered the telekinesis cultivation method that he had obtained from the Divine Sense tribe. With his talent, he had combined it with his ultimate Tao and created a brand new mystery. He named it Rise with a Thought. With a thought. Suddenly, an endless stream of flames emerged from the heavens and earth and converged towards Chu Kuangren, forming into a golden red fire lotus. The fire lotus flew towards the Vajra chief god. The Vajra master god and the fire lotus collided with a loud boom. That tiny fire lotus burst forth with an unimaginable amount of power, sending the Vajra master god flying once more. Not only that, but the golden red flames wrapped around his body, causing the divine power in his body to start burning away. Impossible. These flames are burning my divine power. Myriad deity tribulation fire? Is this specially used to deal with gods? Scatter. The Vajra master god was extremely shocked as he let out a loud roar and dispersed the god power that was attached to his body. Even though he had expended some of his god power, it had also prevented the flames from burning the rest of the god power within his body. With a single thought, 10,000 blades create a disaster of soldiers. Chu Kuangren's calm voice rang out again. His mind power circulated. The spiritual qi between the heavens and earth began to converge. Swords, sabers, weapons, spears, axes, and so on began to materialize from the spiritual qi. The densely packed weapons covered the entire sky. Wherever the weapons pointed, even the master gods could not help but tremble violently. Go. Chu Kuangren said softly. Thousands of spiritual soldiers rushed towards the Vajra master god, as if they had been summoned. Adamantine armor, protect me. The Vajra master god roared as countless Taoist patterns appeared on his golden armor. His divine power gushed out and formed a golden light barrier. The countless weapons collided with the barrier, causing loud explosions. How powerful! I can't believe a human possesses such power. The Vajra master god frantically channeled the divine power within his body and increased the power of his divine companion weapon to its limit to defend against the countless weapons. However, he still felt an unprecedented pressure. This pressure reminded him of a certain existence. For countless years, he had only felt a similar pressure from that existence. Master God. Could this human be a match for the Master God? A ridiculous thought popped up in the Vajra Master God's mind. No, that was impossible. How could the lowly human race be mentioned in the same breath as the God King? The Vajra Master God roared in denial of that thought. Crack, crack. At that moment, the golden light barrier began to crack. Cracks began to spread. More and more cracks appeared, and finally, with a loud boom, the golden light barrier shattered. The spiritual weapons also smashed onto the Vajra Master God one after another, and the surrounding ground was also affected by the impact, causing dust to billow everywhere. When the spiritual weapons and the dust settled, the crowd saw a battered and bloodied figure lying in a crater. The golden armor on his body was already broken into dozens of pieces. Everyone felt like they were in a dream when they saw the scene before them. The Overgod has been defeated. Song Shengxian has won. We've won. We've won. We've won against the Overgod. Chapter 782. For countless years, the deities had always been high and mighty, especially the Overgods. The way everyone saw it, the chief gods were invincible. They had the terrifying power to destroy the world with just a lift of their hand. Although the human race had invented cultivation methods, after so many years of development, even the strongest cultivator was extremely weak in the face of a chief god. However, now Chu Kuangren had defeated a Overgod right in front of them. Moreover, he was unscathed too. This made the humans extremely excited. It turned out that the deities were not invincible. It turned out that humans could defeat the deities too. We can win. The human race will rise again. We won't be a captive of the deities. We must. As long as we're led by Tsang Sage, we can win. Yanwu, Fenrir, and the others were extremely excited. In the godly mountain, the Overgods who were watching the battle could not sit still anymore. I can't believe this song is so powerful. The Overgods are no match for him. They were extremely shocked. They felt like their supreme status had been challenged. No, we can't let Song live. We must kill him. Everyone, I believe you've all seen this clearly. This Song is only strong in his mind power. He's not an immortal like we thought. As long as he's not an immortal, his mind power will have its limits. I don't believe we can't kill him with a few more Overgods. That's right. The Overgod's eyes were filled with cold murderous intent. Chu Kuangren's existence had shaken their status. They could not sit back and watch as Chu Kuangren led the human race to greater heights. Yanwu tribe. Chu Kuangren had just defeated the Vajra Overgod. His aura was very stable, and it seemed like he did not expend much energy. Mind power originated from the soul. And with his current soul power, it was not too difficult to defeat a Overgod. Cough cough. You're dead meat. In the crater, the Vajra Overgod slowly climbed up and coughed out 2 mouthfuls of blood. He glared at Chu Kuangren with intense hatred. As a Overgod, this was the first time he was in such a sorry state. Oh, you're not dead yet. It seems like your divine physique is quite strong. No wonder you're called the Vajra Overgod. Chu Kuangren chuckled. Song, you don't know the true strength of a deity. Even if you kill me, I won't die. After a few thousand years, I'll be reborn in the godly mountain. This is the true strength of a sovereign. The Vajra master deity sneered. Chu Kuangren was not surprised to hear that. He had seen these things in the records of the later generations. That was why people chose to seal the gods instead of killing them. It doesn't matter. You guys can resurrect whenever you want, but I'll always be your nightmare. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. He gently raised his hand. Thousands of weapons converged once again. But at this moment, the sky suddenly darkened, and terrifying waves of divine power erupted from afar. Furthermore, every single one of them was on par with the Vajra chief god. Song, you're too naive. Do you think I'm the only god in the Protoss? Do you think that the main gods will just sit back and watch after you display power comparable to a main god? You might be able to defeat me, but can you defeat the combined forces of the main gods? The Vajra Master God roared with laughter as a smug look appeared in his eyes. Chu Kuangren then stepped on his head. You're very noisy. Bang. Boundless psyche power erupted, and the Vajra chief god's already severely injured head exploded on the spot. A chief god had fallen. A golden prismatic crystal fell out. That was the chief god's godhead. Chu Kuangren picked it up and tossed it into his yin and yang ring. After he killed the Vajra chief god, a terrifying chill suddenly erupted between the heavens and the earth, freezing everything within a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers. The frigid wind swept towards the Yanwu tribe. If this frigid wind were to land in the Yanwu tribe, countless people would die. At this critical moment, Chu Kuangren released his mini-realm and enveloped the entire Yanwu tribe within it. Under the protection of the mini-realm, everyone was spared from the disaster. Boom, boom. The ground shook, thunder rumbled, storms raged, floods surged, and all sorts of natural disasters accompanied by powerful divine power fluctuations appeared one after another. The Yenwu tribe looked exceptionally small in the face of these forces. They all knew that without the protection of Chu Kuangren's mini-realm, any one of these forces would be enough to destroy them. Such terrifying divine power fluctuations, and they're all different. They're all main gods. How many main gods are here? With such a lineup, are the deities going to wipe out the entire human race? Not really. The deities still need to harvest faith energy from the human race, so they won't wipe out the entire human race. I'm afraid these main gods are here to deal with Song Sage. With so many main gods, even Song Sage won't be able to deal with them. It's not easy for the human race to have a sage who can rival the main gods. Is he going to fall just like that? D***. The continuous heavenly disasters shook the minds of everyone present. In the face of such power, even an Empyrean was very insignificant. They knew that these forces were all here for one person. Chu Kuangren stood between the heavens and the earth. His not-so-tall body was unusually tall in the face of these horrifying natural disasters. His expression was very calm. It was as if he would not budge even if the sky fell and the earth collapsed. Amidst the snowstorm, the first main god arrived. It was a man in a white robe with a cold expression. This person was also the Frost Master God, who planted the frost mark on Song Sage back then. Behind him, a blue-robed figure walked out from the dark clouds. His body was surrounded by bluish-purple lightning, making him look extremely domineering. It was the Lightning Master God. The raging winds gathered and turned into a woman. It was the Tempest Master God. The flames between the heavens and earth converged and formed into a burly man with a head full of red hair. This person was the Flame Master God. A dazzling white light bloomed in the sky, and on the other side of the white light was an extremely dense darkness. The two stood opposite each other. The Light Master God and the Darkness Master God also walked out. Amidst the quaking ground, a stone pillar suddenly protruded, and on top of that stone pillar stood a majestic figure. It was the Great Master God. Buzz buzz, the void trembled, and a black gate appeared. The gate opened, and a figure in a black robe walked out, surrounded by countless vengeful spirits. This was the Lord of the Underworld. These are all familiar faces. Chu Kuangren chuckled. In the future, he had crossed paths with the myriad deity sect before. Those disciples could activate the power of the deities, so they had created various divine projections of the deities. He had seen every deity here before. This was especially true for the Lord of the Underworld, the Light Master God, and the Darkness Master God. He had met these guys a few times already. Ice Master God, Flame Master God, Tempest Master God. Oh my God! 8 Master Gods. To think that 8 Master Gods have come. My God, this is too scary. Compared to Chu Kuangren's calmness, the cultivators who were watching the battle could not help but gasp. One main god was enough to make people despair. Yet now, 8 main gods had suddenly appeared. It's over. It's really over now. No matter how strong Song Sage is, he won't be a match for 8 main gods. The heavens want to end the human race's luck. Chapter 783. The 8 overgods hovered in the air as all sorts of natural disasters circled around them, crazily attacking Chu Kuangren's lesser realm. Everyone thought that Chu Kuangren could not hold on any longer. How was he supposed to fight against 8 overgods? However, the strong cultivators who were secretly observing could not help but gulp as they stared at Chu Kuangren. They were more shocked than the 8 overgods. Song can still stabilize his lesser realm under the attack of 8 overgods' divine powers. Isn't his lesser realm a little too sturdy? Could it be that even 8 overgods can't suppress him? The strong cultivators who were secretly observing were all shocked. Meanwhile, the 8 overgods looked at Chu Kuangren with a solemn expression. For a human to be able to force 8 overgods to join forces against him, Song, you're truly a legend. The Flame Overgod said to Song. Why waste your breath on him? Let's do it. The Frost Overgod raised his hand and unleashed his divine power, turning it into a frost chi that froze everything in its path. Let's see who's stronger if we're competing in frost chi. Chu Kuangren chuckled. A surge of frost chi that was no weaker than the frost over gods erupted. With a single thought, 10,000 rivers of frost and snow shall freeze. The frost chi erupted from Chu Kuangren's body. Wherever it went, the void, sand, grass, and even space were all frozen. When the two surges of frost chi collided, it instantly turned the entire place into a world of ice and snow. The surge of frost chi overpowered the frost over god. A surge of frost chi landed on the frost over god, causing his entire body to shiver. His face instantly turned pale, as if his blood and soul were about to be frozen. He looked at Chu Kuangren in disbelief. How can this be? How can your frost chi be so strong? Freezing with frost. And the one who froze was him, the frost over god. It was unbelievable, but the truth was right before their eyes. Although they were shocked, they had no choice but to believe it. You used the frost mark to torture me for years. What's wrong? Can't you take this bit of frost chi? Chu Kuangren chuckled. He lifted his palm gently, and his mind power erupted once again. The terrifying frost chi turned into a white flood dragon that charged towards the frost over god. At that moment, a bolt of lightning exploded. The lightning master god came before the ice master god as a thick purplish-blue thunderbolt blasted apart the frosty aura. Even though his strength was much stronger than the ice master god's, he could not help but let out a solemn expression in the face of this chilling aura. Everyone, don't just stand there, make your move. The lightning master god said coldly. The other sovereigns instantly attacked as well. Then all sorts of divine powers such as the winds, the earth, the darkness, and the light erupted and charged towards Chu Kuangren from all directions. Faced with such power, even a Tao Lord would be instantly killed. Chu Kuangren channeled his mind power to its maximum. The invisible psychokinesis force caused the void around him to distort. With a single thought, all techniques returned to the void. Chu Kuangren let out a soft grunt, and several vortexes appeared around him. Within these vortexes, a large number of Taoist patterns were circulating and intertwining. All of the divine power attacks that entered these vortexes were disintegrated one after another. Rising with a single thought was a mystery that Chu Kuangren had come up with after researching the mind power cultivation technique. It was also an interpretation of his path of self-improvement and invincibility. At this stage, it was divided into 4 moves. 10,000 deities tribulation fire lotus, 10,000 swords creating calamity of weapons, 10,000 rivers misty snow. These 3 techniques were all offensive techniques. Meanwhile, the 4th technique, all techniques return to the void, was a defensive technique. This technique was somewhat similar to the invincible heavenly vortex technique. The only difference was that it did not have a rebounding ability, but its defensive power was much stronger. Countless divine powers were disintegrated one after another when they entered the vortexes that Chu Kuangren had created. They could not hurt him at all. Compared to the deities, his body was extremely fragile. Everyone knew that if they could land a hit on Chu Kuangren, he would definitely die on the spot with his fragile physical body. However, they could not do it. What a powerful defensive technique. The underworld god's expression turned grim. Then he channeled his divine power and chanted a strange syllable. It was the underworld god's sole divine ability, the underworld god's language. The power of the underworld god's language charged towards Chu Kuangren, directly attacking his soul through his physical body. This attack was so terrifying that it was impossible to defend against it. In the future, Chu Kuangren had experienced this technique twice, but the power of those 2 times was far inferior to the one he was facing now. This time it was the underworld god's full power. If I didn't come to this era, this underworld god's language might have some effect on me. But now it's useless. Chu Kuangren stood his ground and allowed the underworld god's language to attack him. Before he came to this era, his soul energy was already extremely powerful because he cultivated the Lotus Sutra. It was no weaker than a Daolord's. After he came to this world, he had consumed 99 soul fruits. In addition to that, he had also cultivated the 9 transformations 3 elemental soul refinement technique. Hence, his soul strength was probably no weaker than a Daolord's. The underworld god's language's attack was completely useless against him. The underworld god noticed this too. He looked at Chu Kuangren in shock. The underworld god's language is useless against him. How can his soul be so powerful? He channeled his divine power again. Suddenly, a black door appeared in the void. Once the door opened, countless Shura evil spirits immediately rushed out howling. It was another divine ability of the underworld god, the door of the underworld. Heh, it's this stupid door again. Chu Kuangren chuckled. With a single thought, spiritual chi gathered and formed into thousands of weapons. Countless blades swept out like a storm. Everywhere they passed, the Azura evil spirits were completely annihilated. Then, the thousands of weapons landed on the black door. Boom, boom, boom. The entire door was blasted into smithereens by the weapons. With the door of the underworld destroyed, the underworld god's face instantly turned pale. It was obvious that he had suffered some backlash. Raging flame dragon howl. The flame master god made his move. Golden flames burned around his body and transformed into a ferocious fire dragon. The surrounding air felt like it was being set on fire. The fire dragon roared with an earth-shattering aura. Chu Kuangren stood on the spot. With a single thought, the spiritual chi between heaven and earth gathered towards him. Taoist patterns intertwined and formed a golden-red fire lotus. Fighting fire with fire. The golden-red fire lotus landed on the fire dragon. The two flames formed by divine power and mind power clashed with each other. The void was distorted by the extreme heat. In the end, the two flames exploded at the same time. The waves of fire that swept out collided with the Flame Master God's body. The mighty Flame Master God let out a scream from the heat and was pushed back a few hundred meters. A hole was burned through his clothes, revealing a large piece of burnt skin. The Frost Master God was injured by the chilling chi, and the Flame Master God was burned by the flames. Everyone was in disbelief. The Earth Master God and the Windstorm Master God followed suit. However, they could not hurt Chu Kuangren either. Instead, they were injured and pushed back by his powerful mind power. Chu Kuangren had single-handedly suppressed the 8 great overgods. Everyone was dazzled by the elegant demeanor he displayed in his every move. At that moment, the humans seemed to have seen a ray of light. A ray of hope that pierced through the dark night and spanned the ages. There's hope for the humans. In Wind Valley, Yen Wu and the others were overwhelmed with emotions. New. Chapter 784. Chu Kuangren overpowered the 8 overgods. His unparalleled strength shook the entire firmament and land. As the 8 overgods sustained injuries one after another, the other overgods who were watching the battle from afar could no longer sit still. Initially, they thought that the 8 overgods would be more than enough to deal with Chu Kuangren. However, it seemed like they had made the wrong judgment. Chu Kuangren's combat strength was ridiculously strong. We must join in as well. That's right. If this goes on, we might not even be able to kill this person. Our celestial tribe's reputation will be tarnished. If the 8 overgods can't even take down a single human, how are we going to build our reputation in the human race? Rays of light flew out of the godly mountain. In the Yenwu tribe, Chu Kuangren was very proficient in using his mind power. With all kinds of mind power cultivation techniques, and his own invincible techniques, he almost single-handedly suppressed the 8 overgods. Countless humans were overwhelmed by the sight of it. At that moment, another powerful surge of divine power came from afar. 12 rays of light had arrived. It's the oceanic deity, the wood deity, the demonic deity. Another 12 chief gods. Oh my god, all these chief gods have appeared together just to deal with a single human. This is way too extravagant, isn't it? TSK, this kind of thing has never happened before. Initially, everyone thought that it was just a battle between the Star Slayer tribe and the Yenwu tribe, but things had progressed far beyond their expectations. This was clearly a battle between the Celestial tribe and the human race. If Chu Kuangren could win this battle, his reputation in the human race would rise to an unprecedented level. Not only that, but the human race would also realize through this battle that the Celestial tribe was not omnipotent, and that they could still fail. This would also plant a seed for overthrowing the rule of the Celestial tribe. On the other hand, if Chu Kuangren died, the human race would not be able to recover. At that thought, everyone, including the ferocious beasts and beasts in the firmament and land, paid close attention to this battle. The celestial tribe has ruled this land for so many years. It's time to make some changes. Perhaps this Tsang is the key. Tsang. He's a rare talent. I can't believe there's such an anomaly in the human race. Could this human be the next ruler of Firmament Star? Countless strong cultivators in the firmament and land had different thoughts. Outside the Yenwu tribe, following the arrival of the 12 overgods, a terrifying surge of divine power swept towards Chu Kuangren with a majestic aura. 12 plus 8 meant 20 sovereigns. In addition to the slain Vajra master deity, more than half of the master deities in the celestial tribe had been mobilized to deal with Chu Kuangren. Heh, are there any more? Do you want me to give you some time to gather all the sovereigns? Chu Kuangren tugged at the cloak on his body and smiled. Against the 20 most powerful overgods in the world, he behaved extremely casually. He did not feel nervous at all. Hearing his words, the expressions of the gods became extremely ugly. Ever since I was born, this is the first time I've met a heretic like you. If you don't die, my god race won't be able to rest easy. That's right. The human tribe is only fit to be controlled by the gods. Obey and respect the gods. This is the only way for you to survive in this world. The human tribe doesn't need a heretic like you. You must die. The human tribe was born to provide labor and faith to the celestial tribe. Resistance will only result in destruction. Every overgod stared at Chu Kuangren with a murderous intent that almost solidified in their eyes. The atmosphere between the heavens and the earth became extremely tense. The 20 overgods channeled their divine powers and were ready to strike. The vast ripples of divine power shook the entire ground. Countless living beings on the ground prostrated themselves on the ground, shivering in fear. The only way for us to survive? What a joke. The human tribe was born free. We have our own way of survival. It's not up to you gods to tell us what to do. Chu Kuangren said loudly. With the help of his mind power, his voice spread across the entire world, inspiring countless humans. This is your destiny. The underworld god said coldly. Destiny? I'll show you what destiny is. An incredibly powerful and domineering aura suddenly erupted from Chu Kuangren's body. Countless Taoist patterns spread out with him as the center, causing the entire firmament star to tremble. Accompanied by a deafening explosion in the sky, all living beings instinctively felt an indescribable sense of fear. This energy, all the overgods at the scene could not help but narrow their eyes. They could clearly feel the godheads within their bodies trembling slightly. It was as if they were afraid of something. The power of the heavenly Tao. This is the power of the heavenly Tao. The underworld god exclaimed in disbelief. The other overgods were also so scared that their faces turned pale. They trembled as they looked at Chu Kuangren, who had unleashed the power of the heavenly Tao. The power of the heavenly Tao? Why does he have the power of the heavenly Tao? What's going on? The overgods were dumbfounded. The heavenly Tao was the power that maintained the order of the firmament star. It was the collective consciousness of the firmament star and the billions of living beings. Although the gods were born from the innate Taoism, they too would be suppressed by the power of the heavenly Tao. In fact, they were even more suppressed than the other living beings. That was because the heavenly Tao did not like them who were born from the innate Taoism. They lived under the heavenly Tao, but were not under its control. You're talking about destiny? Then let's see who's destined. Chu Kuangren said calmly. In his unification Tao state, the combination of the power of the heavenly Tao, his mind power, and his ultimate Taoism was terrifying. With a thought, the 10,000 deities calamity fire lotus. He pointed a finger. The flames of heaven and earth converged, and turned into a golden red fire lotus. The fire lotus flew towards the underworld god. Not good. The underworld god channeled his divine power and attacked. A black divine power surged and landed on the fire lotus, but it was easily burned into nothingness. The fire lotus landed on the underworld god's body like a hot knife through butter. With a scream, the underworld god was burned into a piece of charcoal. Retreat! Quickly! One of the overgods yelled. With a thought, 10,000 rivers of snow and ice. A chilly wind descended from the sky with frost and snow. The boundless chill spread out with Chu Kuangren at the center. This chill was too piercingly cold. The overgods wanted to retreat, but they felt as if their bodies were frozen, and their movements became sluggish. With a thought, 10,000 blades of war. Chu Kuangren chuckled. Spiritual chi gathered and thousands of blades swept in all directions. The flame overgod, frost overgod, tempest overgod, and earth overgod who were closest to Chu Kuangren were instantly killed by the countless blades. How can it be so terrifying? The overgods were so scared that their souls almost flew out of their bodies. Just when Chu Kuangren was about to follow up with another attack, ripples appeared in the void, and mysterious Taoist patterns appeared one after another. These Taoist patterns made Chu Kuangren's mini-world freeze for a moment. This power, Chu Kuangren squinted. Let's go. An indifferent voice rang out. The other sovereigns, upon hearing this, hurriedly left. Chu Kuangren did not chase after them. Instead, he looked at a mountain not far away and saw a man in a silver-white robe standing there. That man was also a overgod. Chu Kuangren was very familiar with the energy waves that emanated from his body. It was one of the space-time techniques that he specialized in. Overgod of space. Chu Kuangren read out his name with a playful look in his eyes. New. Chapter 785. Xiao AI, Analyze the Spacetime Overgod. Chu Kuangren muttered in his mind, and all sorts of information about the spacetime overgod appeared in his mind. Master, I have good news. The omniscient spirit Xiao AI suddenly said. Oh, tell me about it. According to the analysis, the spacetime overgod's godhead contains powerful spacetime energy. If we use his godhead to activate the river of time, we can succeed even without the Taoist master's energy, Xiao AI said slowly. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up when he heard that. Ha, that's a pleasant surprise. Chu Kuangren looked at the spacetime overgod with a playful gaze. The spacetime overgod shuddered inexplicably. He suddenly felt like he was a rabbit being targeted by a hunter, and an inexplicable sense of danger welled up in his heart. He quickly suppressed this strange feeling. Song, your war with the Celestials has just begun. I won't let this go so easily, the spacetime overgod said. His figure flashed and disappeared on the spot. His technique was quite similar to Chu Kuangren's spatial conveyor technique. Running away after saying those words. Interesting. He had no intention of giving chase. He had indeed won this battle, but he had expended a lot of his mind power as well. He might not be able to take it if he continued to fight. Of course, the Celestials might know this too, but they did not dare to continue fighting because they did not know how many more overgods Chu Kuangren could kill before his mind power ran out. Chu Kuangren deactivated his Taoist unification mode. He picked up all the godhoods on the ground. Back at the tribe, Yanwu, Fenrir, Qingyi, and the others walked up to Chu Kuangren. They looked at him with fanatical respect. Song Shengxian, you're amazing. Yeah, you managed to chase away so many overgods. You're the only one with such strength since the birth of the human race. Not bad, you're too powerful. Chu Kuangren smiled at the crowd's admiration. As long as you guys work hard, you'll be like me one day. Really? Song Shengxian, don't lie to us. That's right. We humans are born weak. Even the cubs of those ferocious beasts are countless times stronger than us when they are born. Can we really become as powerful as you, sage? Everyone looked at Chu Kuangren with hope in their eyes. When Chu Kuangren heard that, he replied solemnly, You're right. We humans are indeed born weak, but it's precisely because we're weak that we're born with nothing. That's why we have everything we have, and why we have unlimited potential for growth. I am very gratified, because you all know that you are very weak, and admitting that you are weak is precisely the prerequisite for us to become strong. We are weak, but we were born to defeat the strong. Gods aren't scary, and being weak isn't scary either. As long as we humans work together and are of one mind, we will eventually stand upright in the heavens and spread the glory of the human race to the earth. Chu Kuangren gave his speech. After witnessing the scene of him killing a deity, no one doubted his words anymore. In addition to that, he secretly used the ethereal 7 emotions song to stir up everyone's emotions. At that moment, Everyone's faces were flushed with excitement and longing. Chu Kuangren's words had planted a strong seed in their hearts. All that was left was to be watered in the future, and then it would sprout. Spread the glory of the human race to the earth. Yanwu said loudly. Spread the glory of the human race to the earth. Spread the glory of the human race to the earth. The morale of the entire Yanwu tribe was at an all-time high. Everyone looked at Chu Kuangren. At that moment, their hearts were filled with an incomparably firm belief that they would follow him for the rest of their lives. Chu Kuangren looked at Yanwu and the others and secretly gave himself a thumbs up. It seemed like he had quite the talent for giving speeches. Chu Kuangren returned to his room. He took out the overgod godheads that he had killed this time. There were 6 in total. They were the godheads of the Vajra god, the windstorm god, the flame god, the frost god, the earth god, and the underworld god. The death of 6 overgods was a huge blow to the celestial race. Of course, the overgods would not really die. After a few thousand years, they would be reborn in the godly mountain. That was the most troublesome part. Chu Kuangren used Xiao AI to analyze the godheads in front of him. They all had their corresponding attributes, and the energy they contained was extremely huge. This is a soul attribute. Suddenly, Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up as he held the underworld god's godhead. The underworld god's godhead contained an extremely huge amount of soul energy, which would be a great help to his cultivation of the 9 transformations, 3 elemental soul refinement technique. He kept the rest of the godheads. He then began to refine the underworld god's godhead. Although this body did not cultivate, he did not need a physical body to refine soul energy. All he needed was a powerful soul. In the current firmament star, who else could have a soul that was stronger than him? Time passed. It took Chu Kuangren almost a month to refine the underworld god's godhead. The soul flame that represented the earth soul gradually grew stronger under the underworld god's godhead's energy, and finally, it completely condensed into the earth soul. Once the earth soul was formed, Chu Kuangren's soul energy skyrocketed. The earth soul has just been formed, and it's still a distance away from the full completion stage. If only I had another underworld god's godhead. Chu Kuangren's sky soul murmured. The underworld god is dead. I don't know how long it'll take for him to be born again, the earth soul said. There's no hurry. Besides the underworld god's godhead, there are many treasures in this world that can strengthen soul energy. The sky soul chuckled. The sky soul and earth soul returned to his physical body. Chu Kuangren stretched. Roulette, let's spin. Congratulations, host. You've drawn a legendary array master's inheritance. A legendary array master was not bad. He had already taught the humans about alchemy and equipment refining. Now that he was going to teach them about array formations, he wondered if they could learn it. Besides, he was also very proficient in runes. After some thought, Chu Kuangren decided to wait for a while. Going too far was as bad as not going far enough. When he left the room, he habitually used his emperor's thought to scan the Yanwu tribe to see if anything had happened recently. With a glance, he found that there were some unfamiliar guests in the tribe. They were not humans, but wild beasts. Among them were Lust, Ox Demon, Ho, and other wild beasts. Chu Kuangren was curious. What were these wild beasts doing in the Yanwu tribe? He found Yanwu. After a short conversation, Chu Kuangren was very surprised. You're saying that they're here to form an alliance with us? Yes. Yanwu nodded. Not only the wild beasts, but some other tribes also want to form an alliance with us. Now that the Yanwu tribe had defeated the Star Slayer tribe, it had become the strongest tribe of the human tribe. Coupled with Chu Kuangren's powerful combat strength of killing overgods, it was only natural that many people wanted to curry favor with them. I'll leave this matter to you, Chu Kuangren said calmly. Unknowingly, his tone was already that of a superior. Yanwu did not feel uncomfortable at all. Although he was now the leader of the Yanwu tribe in name, Chu Kuangren had long been the real master of the tribe. He did not have any objections. After all, Chu Kuangren's achievements and strength were many times stronger than his. Yanwu was even considering when to give up his position. New. Chapter 786. Several months had passed since the battle between Chu Kuangren and the Over-God. In these few months, the Yanwu tribe had absorbed the Star Slayer tribe's army and formed alliances with the other tribes. The Yanwu tribe was now the strongest tribe of the human tribe. Under Chu Kuangren's guidance, they had improved tremendously in all aspects. On the other hand, the deities had not made any big moves recently. That battle had made them extremely fearful of Chu Kuangren. In a certain mountain range, Chu Kuangren held a supreme herb in his hand. There were Taoist patterns flowing on the supreme herb, and waves of brilliance flowed. This 7-star soul herb should be enough for me to upgrade my earth soul to the full success realm. Chu Kuangren murmured as he looked at the supreme herb in his hand. During this period, Chu Kuangren had been searching for opportunities of fortune to strengthen his soul energy. In the ancient world, the spiritual qi was abundant, so there were countless treasures and opportunities of fortune. With his current strength, there was basically nothing in this world that could threaten him. He had gained quite a lot. Now that his earth soul was almost at the full success realm, he believed that he would be able to condense the 4th human soul soon. After refining the supreme herb in his hand, Chu Kuangren's earth soul had reached the full success realm, and his soul energy was comparable to a heavenly soul. He felt that his mind power had reached a new height, and he could cover the entire world with a single thought. He could even see the scenery of the outer realm. Just as he was using his mind power to sense the entire world, he saw a stone wall with a huge finger mark on it. A familiar fluctuation spread out from the finger mark. This is the Immortal's Wall. Chu Kuangren recalled a scene he saw in the River of Time, where the Immortal left a finger mark on the stone wall. He was a little interested. He used the spatial conveyor technique and arrived in front of the stone wall. Because of the Immortal's Wall, this stone wall was also named the Immortal's Wall. At this moment, there were more than 10 cultivators in front of the Immortal's Wall, looking at the finger mark on it, trying to understand its mysteries. However, the Immortal's Wall was so mysterious that even a Taoist master would find it difficult to understand it. Not to mention that the people here were just ordinary emperors and heavenly honorables. It was even more difficult for them to understand the mysteries within. Songsheng sages here. At that moment, a cultivator noticed Chu Kuangren's arrival. By now, Chu Kuangren was known by everyone in the human tribe. When everyone saw him, they immediately stood up to welcome him. Greetings, Sage Tsang. Songsheng Xian, you are also here to comprehend this Immortal's Wall? Chu Kuangren chuckled. Let me have a look. He chuckled and looked at the Immortal's Wall. Everyone stood quietly at the side, not wanting to disturb him. We are unable to comprehend the moves left behind on the Immortal's Wall. However, Song Shengxian is different. Perhaps he might really succeed. Not bad. They looked at Chu Kuangren with hope in their eyes. When Chu Kuangren looked at the Immortal's stone rampart, he could not help but spread the 7 emotions illusory netherworld melody that he had learned. The surrounding cultivators narrowed their eyes. This ripple is similar to the one left behind by the immortals on the stone wall. It can't be. Could it be that Sage Tsang has already comprehended it? I've been studying here for close to 1,000 years without gaining anything. However, the moment the Sage Tsang arrived, I immediately had a reaction. Could this be the difference between us and the Sage Tsang? While Chu Kuangren was trying to comprehend the moves left behind on the immortal's wall, his consciousness was suddenly pulled into a strange space. It was a mountain peak surrounded by clouds and mist. In front of him sat a white-haired old man. The old man noticed his arrival and chuckled. Little fella from the later generations, we finally meet. Xiao AI, analyze this old man in front of you. Chu Kuangren subconsciously called out to Xiao AI. As an omniscient spirit, Xiao AI had never disappointed him. Information about this old man soon appeared in his mind. Without a doubt, the old man in front of him was the one left behind on the immortal's wall. He was also an immortal who came to the firmament star a long time ago. He called himself the Ancient Immortal. The one who appeared in front of him now was only a sliver of consciousness left behind by the Ancient Immortal on the immortal's wall. Greetings, Immortal. Chu Kuangren calmly bowed. I wonder if you have anything to say to me, Immortal? Nothing much. It's just that I was curious when I sensed that you were in the river of time of the heavenly Tao. That's why I left this sliver of consciousness behind, hoping to meet you. Entering the river of time was not something that anyone could do. Not even an immortal could do it. However, Chu Kuangren, a cultivator who was not even an immortal, had traveled through the river of time from the later generations to this era. That made the ancient immortal very curious. He guessed that Chu Kuangren had some kind of big secret on him. That was why he wanted to meet Chu Kuangren. I see. May I know where you're from, immortal? Chu Kuangren nodded and asked curiously. The Green Emperor Galaxy is not that far from your solar system. It's about 60 to 70,000 light years away. Why did you come here, immortal? I met an enemy and was severely injured. That's why I came here, the ancient immortal said helplessly. Chu Kuangren was speechless. Someone who could injure an immortal must be an immortal as well. Taking advantage of this opportunity to meet the immortal, Chu Kuangren took the opportunity to ask a lot about immortals, broadening his knowledge. The ancient immortal answered everything he knew, taking it as a sign of good karma. Little friend, I've left an immortal technique on this stone wall. How much you can learn from it depends on yourself. If fate allows it, we may meet again in the vast universe. In the end, the ancient immortal chuckled, and his figure began to dissipate. Chu Kuangren stood up and bowed again. Then his consciousness returned to his physical body, and continued to learn the technique on the stone wall. He had already learned the illusory 7 emotions melody through the 9 scrolls, so it was a walk in the park for him now. Moreover, after learning the technique on the stone wall, his understanding of this immortal technique had become even more complete. Songsheng Sage, have you learned the mysteries of this stone wall? A cultivator asked curiously when he saw that Chu Kuangren had woken up. Just a little. Chu Kuangren chuckled. The sage is indeed a sage. He's really different. We've been trying to learn this technique for so many years without any results, but the sage has it the moment he arrives. Yeah, we can't compete with him. The crowd sighed. Chu Kuangren casually exchanged a few words with them before he returned to the Yanwu tribe. Yanwu, Fenrir, and the others gathered together as if they were discussing something. When they saw Chu Kuangren, they went up to him. What are you guys talking about? Songsheng Sage, we're discussing about an alliance. Oh, haven't you guys finished discussing this? It's not difficult to form an alliance, but we still lack a leader. We've unanimously decided to appoint Songsheng Sage as our leader. Yanwu said solemnly. At the side, Fenrir nodded as well. The human tribes have been divided for many years. It's time for this situation to end. If we want to fight against the deities, the human tribe needs to work together and unite. For this, we need a leader who can guide us. And that leader is you, Songsheng Sage. New. Chapter 787. That person is you. Chu Kuangren was stunned when he heard that Yanwu wanted to nominate him as the leader of the human tribe. He then looked at the others. The others looked at him expectantly. He nodded slightly. If that's the case, it would be impolite of me to decline. According to history, he would have become the human king. Therefore, he did not reject it. Everyone smiled when they heard him agree. All right, I'll summon the leaders of the other tribes in a few days, so that everyone can witness it, Yanwu said. That's right. It's time for the human tribe to have a king. Everyone was discussing excitedly. Chu Kuangren, on the other hand, was very calm. Beside him, Green Robe could not help but lament. When Chu Kuangren said that he wanted to be the human king, he believed him. However, he did not expect that Chu Kuangren would become the king in such a short period of time. It was too fast. A few days later, Yanwu and the others had finished discussing everything. The leaders of the various tribes had no objections to nominating Chu Kuangren as the leader of the human tribe. After all, everyone had witnessed his contributions and strength, so they did not have the ability to object even if they wanted to. This was the biggest event in the history of the human tribe. Hence, after several days of discussion, Yanwu and the other leaders decided to hold a ceremony at the Emperor Mountain to announce Chu Kuangren as the leader of the human tribe. The Emperor Mountain. This was the place where the first human cultivator became an emperor. Although that emperor had long passed away, The Emperor Mountain was recognized by the heavenly Tao and became the place where most human cultivators could ascend to. This place had a special meaning to the human tribe. So Yen Wu and the others chose this place to announce Chu Kuangren as the leader of the human tribe. Today, the Emperor Mountain was surrounded by countless humans. Almost all the leaders of the human tribes were here. At the peak of the Emperor Mountain, there was an altar. In the past, this altar was used by believers to worship the deities, but today, it was used to worship the heavens and earth. Under the watchful eyes of countless humans, Chu Kuangren slowly walked up to the altar, where a large golden seal was placed on top of it. This large seal was made by Qi Yang using the rarest ores contributed by each tribe, which were then forged by Qi Yang. This seal wasn't a very impressive treasure. It could not even compare to an ordinary emperor weapon. But this was a keepsake. It symbolized the determination of the tribes to elect Chu Kuangren as the human king. Chu Kuangren slowly walked onto the altar and declared loudly, "With the heavens and the earth as my witness, I, Tsang, am now the ruler of the human race. From now on, I will definitely lead the human race to prosperity and development. I will let the glory of the human race shine across the world." With the help of his psyche power, his voice resounded throughout Mount D. Countless humans heard it. They looked at the back of that figure and knew that the human race was about to usher in a brand new era. Boom, boom, suddenly the clouds in the sky surged. A bluish-purple lightning pillar descended from the sky. Countless Tao patterns interweaved within it, emanating powerful waves of divine power. The gods had made their move. Chu Kuangren could not help but chuckle at that. Using his mind power, he easily shattered the thunderbolt. Today is a good day for the human race. Why? Do you deities want to join in the fun too? Chu Kuangren scoffed. Tsang, the human race won't last long under your leadership. A cold snort came from the void. Chu Kuangren knew that it was a master god, the lightning master god. Let's wait and see then. By the way, could you please return to the godly mountain and tell them that I'll be paying them a visit in the near future? Chu Kuangren's words were like a huge bomb dropped on the crowd, making them dizzy. The godly mountain was the base camp of the deities. It was the place where the master gods resided. Since ancient times, outsiders were forbidden from entering. This was especially true for humans, who were not even allowed to go near it. However, Chu Kuangren had said that he would be going to the godly mountain soon. They did not think that he was going there just for a visit. Besides, the deities would not welcome him there anyway. There could only be one reason for that. Chu Kuangren was going to the godly mountain to pick a fight. No way, no way. Chu Kuangren had just become the ruler of the human race, and he was already going to the godly mountain to pick a fight with the deities. This is too much of a rush. They were not ready yet. Above the clouds, even without the lightning master god's message, the master gods who were observing everything in the dark were already trembling with rage. Arrogant. He's just too arrogant. This Tsang is too lawless. What does he think the godly mountain is? Does he think he can just come and go as he pleases? What a joke. That's right. If he dares to come, we'll make sure he never returns. The master gods were furious at Chu Kuangren's words. They swore that if Chu Kuangren dared to come to the godly mountain, they would kill him at all costs to prevent any future troubles. I'll wait for your death on the godly mountain then. The lightning master god snorted before he disappeared without a trace. The ceremony continued. Chu Kuangren raised the golden seal that was the size of 2 palms. The heavens and earth shook. Following that, a large number of golden auspicious clouds appeared in the sky. The golden seal was lifted by an invisible force and lifted into the air. Countless golden auspicious clouds surged and entered the golden seal. The seal radiated with a dazzling brilliance as countless Taoist patterns circulated. The crowd could not help but be dumbfounded at this strange sight. When all the golden auspicious clouds were absorbed into the seal, 3 words appeared on the seal. Human ruler seal. This is the human ruler seal bestowed by the heavenly Tao. Even the heavenly Tao is protecting the human race. This is great. Sage Tsang is indeed the ruler of the human race recognized by the heavenly Tao. Haha. The rise of the human race is unstoppable. Human ruler, human ruler. Greetings, human ruler. Yan Wu and his tribesmen were the first to kneel on the ground, followed by the rest of the tribesmen. Greetings, human ruler. Not only the humans on the Emperor Mountain, but the firmament humans who were scattered across the land also seemed to have sensed it and knelt towards the Emperor Mountain. Human ruler. At this moment, the human race had welcomed their ruler. On the godly mountain from afar, the master gods had also witnessed this phenomenon. Compared to the excited humans, their expressions were a little grim. A name bestowed by the heavenly Tao, and the power of the heavenly Tao on song. Could the human race really be the next ruler of the realm? D***. Why did an anomaly like Song appear in the human race? Aren't humans supposed to be weak and lowly? The master gods were confused. All this while, they had regarded the human race as a labor force and a tool to provide their faith. They had never seen them as opponents. However, this time, they felt a threat from this weak race. It was a threat that was far stronger than the other powerful races in the land. Could it be that the human race could overthrow the rule of the master gods? Such a thought appeared in the master gods' minds. They quickly shook their heads and cast this ridiculous thought out. How could it be possible? How could the human race overthrow them? It's Song. The human race only has Song, who has the ability to fight against the master gods. As long as we kill him, the human race will be nothing but a pile of loose sand. There's nothing to fear. The master god's killing intent towards Chu Kuangren intensified. Chapter 788. On Mount Emperor. The human ruler seal floated in the air before it slowly floated back into Chu Kuangren's palm. He felt that the seal was different now. Although the material did not change, the energy on it had completely changed. Shall AI analyze it? Analyzing. The human ruler seal is a heavenly fortune treasure that gathers the power of the heavens and the human race's fortune. It's a weapon exclusive to the human ruler. New information about the human ruler seal flowed into his mind. A smile appeared on Chu Kuangren's face. A weapon exclusive to the human ruler. He did not expect that the ceremony would yield such a result. The heavenly Tao still favored the human race. The human race was indeed the main character of the world. He suspected that even without him, the heavenly Tao would still support others to become human rulers, and let them fight against the deities. Chu Kuangren thought for a while, and decided not to care anymore. With a thought, the human ruler seal instantly disappeared from his palm, and was stored into his soul. The human ruler seal was very mysterious. It was a heavenly fortune treasure. As long as one was a human ruler, they could easily control it without refining it. However, if one was not a human ruler, they would not be able to use it. The ceremony ended. The crowd gradually left Mount Emperor. There were many things to be done from now on. For example, unifying the tribes, migrating the population, and so on. Chu Kuangren handled all of these in an orderly manner. When he discussed with Yan Wu and the others, he could quickly and accurately point out some of their shortcomings and improve on them. For example, the migration of the population. Yan Wu suggested for each tribe to migrate to one tribe so that they could take care of each other. His idea was not bad. However, he neglected the fact that each tribe lived in different places and had different living habits. If everyone were to be gathered together, it would definitely cause conflicts in life and even culture. Chu Kuangren suggested to first send people to each tribe to bring some advanced culture and technology to gradually transform them. When the time came, they would then integrate the population together. When that time came, the era of the tribal structure would end. It would be replaced by a nation. The king is farsighted. We want to take things one step at a time, but the king thinks 10 steps at a time. He's much better than us. Yeah, who else would be the king if not him? In private, Yan Wu and Fenrir could not help but exclaim. After Chu Kuangren became the king, he did not immediately implement a series of reform policies. Instead, he took things step by step like boiling a frog. After all, in less than a year, weapon refinement and pill refinement alone had caused a huge change in the human race. Continuous changes would only catch people off guard. Fortunately, I was once a sect leader. Otherwise, I might not have been able to handle so many things. Sometimes, Chu Kuangren would lament to himself. In the blink of an eye, several years had passed. Compared to the development of the entire human race, these few years were not even worth mentioning. For some cultivators, it was just a snap of a finger. However, in these few years, Chu Kuangren had raised the standard of living of the commoners at the bottom of the hierarchy by several levels. Now, all over the human race, people were praising his great achievements. King, this is the new population increase of each tribe this year. Yan Wu took out a letter and handed it to Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren glanced at it. Not bad. Compared to last year, it has increased by 30%. Is there any pressure on the food supply? Thanks to the rice, potatoes, and other plants discovered by our king, the food reserves of the human race are basically under no pressure anymore. Yan Wu laughed heartily. Okay. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. In his opinion, the foundation of the human race's continued strength lay in the next generation. As long as the population increased, the number of cultivators would also increase, and the number of strong cultivators would also increase correspondingly. Compared to the other living beings on this land, the human race was slightly weaker. However, they would still give birth. Moreover, it would only take a dozen years for them to mature. Unlike some beasts and ferocious beasts, which took hundreds or thousands of years to gestate, no one knew how long it would take for them to mature. Chu Kuangren looked outside the house. Unknowingly, snow had started to fall from the sky. The whole land was covered in a silvery white color. Chu Kuangren got up and walked out. Looking at the falling snow, he could not help but reach out and grab a snowflake, letting it melt in his palm. Behind him, Qingyi walked up and put a cloak on him. Thank you. Chu Kuangren felt a little warmer after he put on the cloak. He could use his mind power to isolate the chill, but compared to that, he preferred to live like a normal person. He wanted to use his 5 senses to feel the nature of the world. In the past few years, his soul energy had improved a little, but it was a pity that this physical body's talent in chi refinement was extremely poor. Compared to his original body's amazing talent, it was the polar opposite. Therefore, in the past few years, he was too lazy to cultivate chi refinement and focused on his mind power. As for the problem of this physical body's lifespan, he was not worried about it. A few pills would be enough to make him immortal. Chu Kuangren looked at the snowflakes that gradually covered half of the courtyard and smiled. This year's snow is coming especially fast. Auspicious snow foretells a good harvest. I hope there will be a good harvest next year. Definitely, Yan Wu said with a smile. However, after 7 days, the snow did not stop. On the contrary, it was getting heavier. Chu Kuangren looked at the snow outside the house. Beside him, Yan Wu frowned and said, "My king, this snow has been falling for a few days now. Now there are news of snow disasters everywhere. If this continues, the crops planted by the people will all die. I'm afraid next year will be difficult." Cultivators could not eat or drink, but ordinary people could not. A snow disaster was enough to make it difficult for countless people to make a living. Send out cultivators to various places to help. Also, how's the greenhouse technique that I asked you to teach? The greenhouse technique was a method that Chu Kuangren used to help the crops survive the snow disasters. It allowed the crops to survive at a suitable temperature. The greenhouse method is indeed effective. However, there are too many crops planted in the various places. We can only protect a portion of them. Furthermore, if this snow continues, I'm afraid that even the greenhouse method won't be able to last for long. Yan Wu said with worry in his eyes. Don't worry, this snow disaster will stop soon. Chu Kuangren said calmly. He stood up and looked into the distance. I've said before that I'll visit them. It seems that they can't wait any longer. This snow disaster is their signal to invite me over. Yan Wu's eyes narrowed slightly. He instantly understood what Chu Kuangren meant. This snow disaster, is it the work of the gods? Isn't controlling the natural changes of the world their specialty? Chu Kuangren said with a chuckle. A cold ray of light shot out from his eyes. Beside him, Yan Wu felt that the temperature around him had dropped by a few degrees. Even an emperor like him could not help but shiver. My king, do you need to inform the God-defying pavilion to arrange for manpower? The God-defying pavilion was the human tribe's powerhouse. Most of the human heavenly honorable realm powerhouses were hidden within it. Naturally, these people were now under Chu Kuangren's command. No need. I'll make a trip myself, Chu Kuangren said calmly. He picked up the cloak beside him and put it on. He then walked towards the door and disappeared into the void after a few steps. Chapter 789. The Godly Mountain was where the deities resided. Here, the deities ruled over everything. 33 palaces stood at the peak of the Godly Mountain, representing the 33 overgods. The most majestic palace in the middle was surrounded by countless Taoist runes that shrouded it like a protective barrier. Do you guys think that Song will come? An indifferent voice came from one of the white palaces. It was the voice of the god of light. He will come. Back at Emperor Mountain, he said that he would come. Now that the human race has suffered from this snowstorm, if he doesn't come, the human race will not have enough food to survive next year. As long as he comes, he will die. That's right. This is the Godly Mountain, our home ground. Divine power is abundant here, and no one will be a match for us if we fight here. Not to mention the trap that time and space have set up here. Voices came from the palaces one after another. In the past few years, they had witnessed the development of the human race. In just a few short years, the human race had prospered under Chu Kuangren's leadership. Aside from the common people living in peace and contentment, a large number of cultivators had also emerged. This made them feel fearful. To have such a change in just a few years. What about thousands or tens of thousands of years? It was not an empty promise for the human race to overthrow the deity's rule. He's here. At that moment, an indifferent voice was heard. The overgods fell silent for a moment. The atmosphere seemed to have become a little tense. Outside the Godly Mountain, a figure in a white cloak walked out of the void. Chu Kuangren looked at the towering Godly Mountain that was emanating a vast amount of divine power. A cold glint flashed across his eyes. So this is the Godly Mountain. It really does emanate a disgusting amount of divine power. Buzz ripples began to form in the void. One by one, the deities flew out of the Godly Mountain. Some controlled the power of ice, some controlled storms, and some were covered in golden light with domineering auras. All kinds of divine powers intertwined with each other. Who are you? How dare you trespass on the Godly Mountain? A higher god shouted coldly. Song, I'm here for the human race, to seek justice, Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Song. The moment this name came out, all the gods present couldn't help but narrow their eyes. This name could be said to be like thunder piercing through their ears. Song, the leader of the human race, the person who had slain a god. He was the first human in history to slay a master god. And he was an existence that caused the dignity of the gods to fall to the ground. Song. What is he doing here? Nonsense. The gods and the heavens are irreconcilable enemies. He's obviously here to cause trouble. Stop him, don't let him enter the divine mountains. The faces of the gods darkened, and after recovering from their shock, all kinds of divine power burst forth, transforming into a terrifying torrent of divine power that swept out. Trash, get the hell away from me, Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Telekinesis surged out, shattering countless divine powers. Dozens of gods were blasted away by this psychic power and vomited blood. Some of the weaker ones even exploded and died on the spot. To Chu Kuangren, these deities who were below the lord level were no different from small fries. They posed no threat to him at all. In fact, they couldn't even stop his footsteps. The deities were blasted away by the psychic power. Chu Kuangren walked into the divine mountain. Around him, the deities fell to the ground one after another, screaming in agony as their blood stained the ground. How powerful! Is this the combat strength that can kill a master god? That's terrifying. The deities felt an indescribable fear as their scalps went numb. It was too terrifying. It was the first time in many years that they had seen such a terrifying human, who could slay gods like they were slaughtering pigs and dogs. Was this still the same human that they saw as ants? Let him come up. A voice came from the peak of the divine mountain. It was the master god's voice. Upon hearing that, The deities no longer dared to stop Chu Kuangren. A wise choice, Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Then he ignored the deities around him and walked towards the peak of the divine mountain. Every step he took covered a distance of 10,000 meters. Not long after, he arrived at the peak and saw the 33 majestic sacred palaces. He sneered. What a luxurious place to live. Without another word, he lifted his hand and pointed a finger. Telekinesis surged. The flames between the heavens and earth gathered. With a single thought, the myriad deity calamity fire lotus appeared. The tribulation flames shot out and smashed into one of the black sacred palaces. In an instant, terrifying flames erupted and engulfed the entire sacred palace. The darkness master god then dashed out from within. He looked at Chu Kuangren with a grim expression. Lunatic. Don't you want to solve this snowstorm disaster? Why did you attack the moment you appeared? Chu Kuangren glanced at the darkness sacred palace. The sacred palace was burned by the flames, but it was not damaged at all. The material of the sacred palaces was rather special. Was this the place where the master gods resurrected? Chu Kuangren initially wanted to see if he could destroy this divine mountain, but it seemed like he could not do so for now. When he heard what the darkness master god said, he sneered. Don't you guys want to kill me? Then what's there to talk about? Besides, I'm not here to negotiate with you guys. I'm here to slay a god. As soon as he said that, his telekinesis surged again. How arrogant. Why don't you take a look at where you are? This is the divine mountain, our territory. It's not your turn to be arrogant this time. Kill. Powerful divine power erupted from each of the sacred palaces. Then the lightning master god, the light master god, the wood master god, the demonic sea god, and the other master gods walked out one by one. All sorts of divine power shrouded Chu Kuangren. Under the divine mountain's blessing, their auras were much stronger than they were in other places. Chu Kuangren chuckled as mysterious Taoist patterns circulated around his body. Unification mode activated. With the blessing of the heavenly Tao and the ultimate Taoist's power, his telekinesis surged out like a torrent and slammed into the surroundings. The master gods were shocked when they saw that. He's much stronger than before. How is this possible? How can this human improve so quickly? It's only been a few years, and he's already improved so much. The master gods were dumbfounded. Without the blessing of faith, the strength of the gods was fixed, and it was very difficult for them to improve. However, Chu Kuangren had improved so much in just a few years. This shocked them. If all humans were like Chu Kuangren, then it would be a piece of cake for the gods to be overthrown. A main god who is stuck in his own ways? Is that very surprising to you? Chu Kuangren's tone was filled with mockery. To him, innate life forms like the gods were too pitiful. They were born with unparalleled strength, but no matter how many years passed, they would never improve without faith. Even if they had faith, once it collapsed, they would immediately return to their original state and be tightly bound. Kill. Divine demonic heart ray. Divine wood spike. Great light judgment. Great dark obliteration. With a single thought, all techniques returned to the void. Against the impact of the divine power, Chu Kuangren unleashed his strongest defensive technique, and a giant whirlpool formed around him. The divine power was devoured by the whirlpool and disintegrated one by one. With a single thought, 10,000 blades create a disaster. Chu Kuangren mobilized his mind power, and countless spiritual weapons formed. Chapter 790. With a single thought, I shall summon an army of 10,000 blades. Chu Kuangren slowly raised his hand. His mind power erupted, and an endless amount of spiritual qi gathered, turning into spiritual weapons that hovered above the godly mountain. The sovereigns looked extremely grim in the face of the endless amount of spiritual weapons. They even wanted to rush into the temple to hide. At that moment, 8 white light pillars shot up into the sky from the godly mountain. Countless mysterious Taoist patterns enveloped half of the godly mountain. The spatial structure of the surroundings started to change. An energy that Chu Kuangren was very familiar with enveloped him. It's the power of space-time. It's you again. Chu Kuangren looked at a silvery white temple, from which a silvery white figure walked out. It was the space-time over-god. Chu Kuangren came to the godly mountain for two reasons. The first was to seek justice for the snow disaster, and the second was to find the space-time over-god. He had been thinking about the space-time over-god ever since they last met. To be more precise, he was thinking about the space-time over-god's divinity. That was the key to opening up the river of time. The space-time over-god looked at Chu Kuangren with a frown. His opponent's gaze gave him goosebumps. It was the same feeling he had when they first met. It was as if he had become a rabbit that was targeted by a hunter. That made him very, very unhappy. He was the space-time over-god, a powerhouse among the 33 sovereigns who was second only to the godly masters. How could he be treated like a rabbit? How could he tolerate that? Song, this enchantment is set up by my divine weapon, the space-time prison. No matter how strong your mind power is, you won't be able to escape. The space-time over-god snorted. Then he roared, "Time seal!" The 8 white light pillars around him emitted a dazzling light, and a terrifying energy that could seal time instantly erupted. Everything within the space-time prison fell silent. After casting the time seal, the space-time over-god's face turned pale. It was obvious that casting the time seal on a powerhouse like Chu Kuangren had drained a lot of his divine power. How terrifying! Even with the space-time prison's help, casting the time seal on him still drained me of half of my divine power. The space-time over-god was in disbelief. Fortunately, his time restriction took effect. As promised, the surrounding sovereigns immediately attacked Chu Kuangren the moment he unleashed his time seal. All kinds of dazzling divine power flashed. The space-time master god breathed a sigh of relief. Everything was over. No one could survive such a situation. Boom, boom, boom. The light of divine power enveloped the entire space-time cage. Boundless divine power filled the cage and exploded one after another. Large swaths of the void exploded one after another. This energy caused the entire divine mountain to shake. Looks of joy appeared on the faces of the chief gods. Great, we've finally killed this guy. Haha, no one can offend the dignity of a god, and you are no exception. Song, after you die, the human race is no longer a threat. It's time to make those humans submit. That's right. Release the news that Song is dead. Let all the creatures on this land know the consequences of offending a god. Especially the humans. Let them know that their king is dead. If they want to continue living, they can only submit to us. Otherwise, I don't mind killing half of the human race first. The sovereigns were discussing how to deal with the humans. They had been living such a miserable life for the past few years. They were sovereigns, yet they were suppressed by a mere human. Now that they had finally killed Song, they naturally wanted to vent their frustrations. Some of the sovereigns even suggested that they kill half of the humans first. Kill the humans? Then I guess I'll have to bathe the divine mountain in blood first. An indifferent voice suddenly rang out. The sovereigns who were passionately discussing how to deal with the humans suddenly fell silent like ducks that had been grabbed by the neck. They turned to look at the space-time cage. After that violent divine power attack, the space-time cage was filled with a large amount of divine power, making it impossible to see what was happening inside. However, they had no doubt that in this world, as long as one endured such an attack, no one would be able to survive. Not even the sovereigns. Impossible, impossible. How is he still alive? Space-time, what's going on? The sovereigns looked at the space-time master god, who had cast the space-time cage. The space-time master god was also a little confused. That's impossible. My time restriction did work. Did you really hit him? The space-time master god looked at the other sovereigns. Nonsense, do you think so many of us sovereigns missed? The light master god could not help but say. Since the time seal worked, the sovereigns did not miss. Could it be that they were hallucinating? Hallucinating. All the sovereigns stared at the space-time cage with solemn gazes. Boom. A terrifying wave of mind power erupted. The divine power turbulence in the space-time cage was blasted away, revealing a person standing in the air with his black hair fluttering in the wind. It was Chu Kuangren. He was unscathed. The only loss was that half of the cloak on his back had been devoured by the divine power, leaving only half of it. It was not very elegant. Chu Kuangren took out half of the cloak and sighed softly. This cloak was made for me by Qingyi a few years ago. It has been with me for many years, but I can't believe it's broken today. What are you going to give me as compensation? The sovereigns gulped, their eyes filled with horror. What the F***ck? They had tried their best, but all they managed to do was destroy a cloak? Are you kidding me? Why don't you pay with your lives? Chu Kuangren said calmly as he kept the cloak. A cold murderous intent erupted from his body and instantly filled half of the godly mountain. The godly mountain, which was always warm like spring, suddenly felt like it had fallen into the depths of winter. All the sovereigns were trembling in fear. How can there be such a terrifying human? One of the sovereigns stared at the mountaintop and could not help but say with trembling lips. For countless years, the godly mountain has been sacred and inviolable. But today, it has fallen into an unprecedented situation because of a single human. This is the lord of the human tribe. Song. This is too terrifying. Sovereigns, do you have a way to defeat him? In the past, they had never doubted the abilities of the sovereigns. However, Chu Kuangren's strength had shattered their understanding and refreshed their worldview. This even made them doubt the omnipotent sovereigns. At the peak of the godly mountain, the space-time sovereign looked at Chu Kuangren in shock. Impossible. My time seal worked. How can you be unharmed? This is impossible. Chu Kuangren looked at the space-time sovereign who was on the verge of losing his composure and said calmly, nothing is impossible. Your space-time Tao is too weak. At that, the space-time sovereign was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. He instantly flew into a rage and said furiously, my space-time Tao is too weak? What kind of joke is this? I'm the space-time sovereign of this world. I don't know how you broke free from the time seal's control, but you're still trapped in the space-time prison enchanted world. We still have the upper hand in this aspect. You can only wait for your death. Chu Kuangren could not help but laugh. I've already told you that your space-time Tao is too weak. Do you think this broken cage can trap me? Chapter 791. I've already told you that your space-time Tao is too weak. Watch as I break this cage breaker, Chu Kuangren said. Then he gently raised his hand. A palm-sized disc appeared in his palm. The disc was engraved with countless mysterious Taoist patterns. What is that? The god of space's pupils dilated. He sensed a never-before-seen space-time energy from the disc. He was the overgod of space, the god who controlled the space-time of this world. But at this moment, he felt that the space-time energy he controlled was like a small stream facing a boundless ocean in front of the disc. The gap was so huge that it was unbelievable. It was some kind of space-time treasure. However, how could such a space-time treasure exist in this world? That was impossible. At that moment, Chu Kuangren made his move in the space-time cage. He shouted indifferently, time and space mirror open. The temporal mirror spun, and the 9 rings on it spread out, one on top of the other, forming a 3-dimensional device that looked like a globe. A boundless and terrifying space-time force spread out from the space-time mirror, crazily attacking the 8 white light pillars around it. With a loud bang, the pillar of light exploded in response. The space-time cage was broken. The god of space suffered a backlash when the divine weapon was broken. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood as he looked at the temporal mirror in Chu Kuangren's hand in disbelief. What is this thing? Chu Kuangren kept the temporal mirror after breaking the space-time cage. It was a powerful item, but it consumed a lot of energy. He could not use it for a long time with his current strength. In fact, he could only use it in the past few years after he understood the mysteries of the first 4 rings on the temporal mirror. Just now, the god of space's seal of time had indeed been effective against him. It had frozen his time, but in the next instant, it had triggered a reaction from the space-time mirror, which had easily shattered the space-time power. That was why Chu Kuangren could use his mind power to block the divine power attack. The temporal mirror was a supreme deity-grade treasure. Chu Kuangren suspected that it was even more terrifying than an immortal weapon. Playing with the space-time Tao in front of it was a joke. Now it's my turn. Chu Kuangren took advantage of the moment when the space-time cage was broken to appear in front of the god of space. The god of space was shocked and immediately activated his divine power. Time restriction. He used his time divine art again. Time halt. However, at the same time, Chu Kuangren had also used his temporal ability. When the two forces of time collided, ripples appeared in the surrounding void. It was as if a freeze button had been pressed around Chu Kuangren and the temporal overgod, and everything stopped moving in an instant. But in the next instant, Chu Kuangren's mind power surged out and transformed into a giant golden sword that slashed across the space-time master god's neck. Blood splattered everywhere as the god of space's head fell to the ground. Chu Kuangren's time ability had gained the upper hand. The faces of the surrounding sovereigns changed dramatically. The god of space was dead. Chu Kuangren glanced at his opponent's corpse and then turned to the other overgods. All right, it's your turn now. But at this moment, behind him, the god of space's corpse glowed with white light. Countless Tao patterns flowed around it, and the blood flowing on the ground flowed back into the god of space's body, reattaching its head. It was as if the entire process of the god of space's death had been replayed in reverse, and he was resurrected. That was one of the god of space's divine abilities, time reversal. It was a powerful divine ability. However, it consumed a terrifying amount of divine power as well. He had only used it once, but the divine power that he had expended to deal with Chu Kuangren was now completely depleted. Seeing that Chu Kuangren's back was facing him, the god of space immediately took out a silver-white spear and stabbed it at him. He no longer cared about his dignity as a deity. As long as he could kill Chu Kuangren, he would not mind losing his dignity. The silver-white spear pierced through the air. Although it wasn't imbued with any divine power, the strength of the god of space's divine body, and the indestructible nature of the divine spear in his hand, was something that even an overgod wouldn't be able to withstand if they were caught off guard. The spear pierced through Chu Kuangren's back, and came out from the god of space's chest. The god of space was shocked. That's a spatial technique. You have spatial techniques like that. Chu Kuangren turned around and glanced at him. I told you that your space-time Tao is too weak. You can't even detect such a simple spatial technique, let alone ambushing me. What a fool. The god of space's face turned green from being mocked before his death. However, he still had one last question. How did you know I'm not dead? Chu Kuangren had already chopped off his head. To others, he was already dead. Who would be wary of a dead person? Do I need to tell you? Chu Kuangren said indifferently. He then used his mind power to destroy the god of space's head. The god of space did not know that the omniscient spirit's analysis had revealed all of his divine abilities to Chu Kuangren. Of course, that included the time reversal technique. After Chu Kuangren killed the god of space, he had already set up a spatial portal behind him to guard against him. The god of space's divine weapon had only pierced the spatial portal, which was connected to the god of space's back. He had only reaped what he sowed with that spear attack. The mighty spacetime overgod had died to his most prized spacetime technique. It was truly an ironic thing to say. Shall AI analyze this and see if he's completely dead? Chu Kuangren said to the omniscient spirit. Space-time techniques were extremely tricky. Although Chu Kuangren was well versed in them, his opponent was still the god of space. The god of space's aura is completely gone. Upon receiving Xiao AI's response, Chu Kuangren nodded and summoned a ball of golden red flames that landed on the spatial master deity's corpse. Once the spatial master deity's body was reduced to ashes, all that was left was a silvery white rhombus crystal. The spacetime godhead. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up as he kept the godhead that he had been eyeing for a long time. The rest of the overgods could not help but feel shaken when they saw that the god of space, the strongest among them, was dead. They looked at Chu Kuangren with unprecedented fear in their eyes. I think I heard that one of you suggested killing half of the humans first? Chu Kuangren glared at the overgods. With a lift of his arm, spiritual qi gathered and turned into thousands of weapons that shrouded the entire godly mountain. Song, call a truce. I suggest a truce. From now on, the celestial tribe and the humans shall never cross paths again. We shall stop this snow disaster. one of the overgods said anxiously. However, when Chu Kuangren heard that, he gently lowered his palm, and countless spiritual weapons rained down from the sky, bombarding every corner of the godly mountain. One by one, the deities fell under this attack. A truce? Sure, but let me kill half of the deities first, Chu Kuangren said. With a lift of his arm, a new round of spiritual weapons was formed. Chapter 792. The spiritual qi converged into a sharp weapon. Tens of thousands of spiritual weapons enveloped the entire godly mountain like a torrential downpour. Boom, boom, boom. The entire divine mountain trembled violently, and the gods fell one after another under this power. Their divine blood dyed a large area of the ground. The sovereigns all had incomparably ugly looks on their faces. They wanted to stop Chu Kuangren, but they were powerless to do so. Soon, half of the deities on the godly mountain had been slaughtered by Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren, stop this right now. The divine overgod could not stand it any longer. He roared and charged towards Chu Kuangren as he watched his subordinates being slaughtered one after another. Holy judgment! He unleashed a punch, and a large number of Taoist patterns gathered on it, forming a dazzling white light pillar. Useless attack. Chu Kuangren pointed his finger, and his mind power turned into a golden red fire lotus that shot out, shattering the light pillar and killing the divine overgod. How powerful was he now? The divine soul and earthly soul had double the soul power. The power of his mind power was no less than that of a peak minor Taoist master. Coupled with the power of the heavenly Tao, it had a terrifying suppressive effect on the deities. To the deities, Chu Kuangren's combat strength was no weaker than a great Taoist master's. Not to mention the ultimate technique of rising thoughts. Song, I'll kill you. The darkness overgod could not stand it anymore. With a roar, he gathered his boundless darkness divine power, and formed a pitch-black crescent-shaped saber ray. The saber ray contained a terrifying power that seemed to devour everything. Chu Kuangren stood his ground. With a single thought, chilling qi gathered. It was so powerful that it almost froze the entire godly mountain. Everything withered, and the void froze. The saber ray shattered into countless ice shards, and the chilling qi engulfed the darkness overgod like a hot knife through butter, freezing half of his divine body. In the void, the spiritual weapons gathered and descended. Boom. The darkness overgod was shattered into countless pieces. Another overgod had fallen. The faces of the sovereigns were already rather ashen. Could it be that the godly mountain was going to be destroyed by a single human? No, that was impossible. The overgods trembled in disbelief. Just as Chu Kuangren was massacring the deities, a surge of divine power that was far more powerful than the average Lord God suddenly erupted from the godly mountain. The entire godly mountain trembled because of this surge of divine power. It was as if a forbidden existence was awakening. Chu Kuangren had also sensed this aura. He narrowed his eyes. Oh, this power! He actually felt a trace of threat. As for the other sovereigns, looks of wild joy appeared on their faces. It's the Divine Master. The Divine Master has awakened. Haha, this is great, this is great. How many years has it been? I've waited for this day for so many years. The Divine Master has finally awakened. Song, this place will not tolerate your arrogance. All the sovereigns looked towards the centermost shrine, incomparably excited. The runes around the Temple of Glory dissipated one by one, and the massive divine power aura grew stronger and stronger. Dong, dong. A series of footsteps that sounded as if they were stepping on everyone's hearts rang out. Inside the Temple of Glory, a black-robed, silver-haired man slowly walked out. His deep, obsidian-like eyes swept across the surroundings, and anyone who was stared at, including the overgods, could not help but shudder from the depths of their hearts. That man was the Divine Master. The Divine Master, Huang. His gaze swept across the godly mountain, and finally landed on Chu Kuangren with a hint of surprise in his eyes. A human. I can't believe that the powerhouse who caused the godly mountain to tremble is a lowly human. The Divine Master was very surprised. He was originally in a deep slumber to recover from the injuries inflicted by the immortals a long time ago. However, before he could fully recover from his injuries, He sensed the godly mountain trembling, and sensed that an enemy so powerful that even the overgods could not handle was approaching. That was why he interrupted his slumber and woke up. However, what surprised him was that the powerhouse who caused the entire godly mountain to tremble was only a human. To him, it was a little unbelievable that such a powerhouse could be born from such a lowly and weak race. I've been in a deep slumber for so long. Have you all sunk so low? The divine master looked at the overgods and said indifferently. The sovereigns instantly fell rather silent. They felt ashamed. As a overgod, they had allowed a human to bully them. It was a huge blow to the dignity that the celestial tribe had accumulated for hundreds of thousands of years. Forget it. Let me deal with this person first, then we'll talk about this, the divine master said indifferently as he looked at Chu Kuangren. He gently lifted his arm, and a majestic black divine power suddenly erupted and swept towards Chu Kuangren. Furthermore, this divine power carried an aura of destruction. Finally, an opponent that can force me to use my full strength has appeared in the celestial tribe. Chu Kuangren chuckled. His mind power surged, and thousands of spiritual soldiers surged out like a flood. The two energies collided, and the godly mountain shook a few times. This strength is indeed shocking even to the gods. The divine master glanced at Chu Kuangren. With a lift of his arm, an even more terrifying divine power surged out. Even Chu Kuangren felt troubled by that attack. After he unleashed his mind power, he was pushed back a few hundred meters by his opponent's divine power. If he had not cast a layer of mind power barrier on the surface of his body, that attack would have killed him on the spot. At that thought, Chu Kuangren looked at the divine master and smirked. He said, "Is this the power of a divine master? It's very powerful indeed." The divine master did not say a word. Instead, he unleashed another punch. A majestic divine power erupted. Chu Kuangren lifted his arm, and a huge golden seal appeared. It was the human ruler's seal. When the seal was thrown out, the destructive divine power was shattered by the seal. The man-ruler seal was like a hot knife through butter as it headed for the master god. The vast might made the master god's face change slightly. With a growl, the divine master punched the divine seal. Deity's destruction of the universe. After a loud explosion, the ground around them exploded. The human ruler's seal was sent flying. Meanwhile, the divine master was also sent flying by the seal. His right fist trembled slightly as his knuckles cracked and blood gushed out. A cold glint flashed across his eyes. He had actually been injured. He had been injured by a human. Chu Kuangren controlled the human ruler's seal to float above his head and said, "This is my first time using this against an enemy, so I'm not familiar with it yet. I hope the divine master will forgive me if its power is too weak." The overgods around them gulped. The divine master was forced back by a single seal. After so many years, aside from that immortal who suddenly came to Firmament Star, this was the first time they had seen the divine master being forced back. Its power is indeed a little weak. The divine master snorted. He continued to attack. Chu Kuangren did not back down either. The human ruler's seal unleashed a terrifying power in his hands, forcing the divine master to retreat. The battle lasted for an entire day and night. The overgods around them did not have any chance to intervene. As the divine master was forced back by the human ruler's seal again, the injuries that he had suppressed were showing signs of relapse. How long can you suppress it? Chu Kuangren looked at the divine master and smiled. How much of your mind power do you have left then? The divine master retorted. Both of them knew that the other had a limit. Chapter 793. Inside the Godly Mountain. Chu Kuangren and the awakened Lord God were engaged in a battle, but they were evenly matched. For the time being, neither of them could do anything to the other. "Human, you're very strong. I can give you a chance to join us and become a deity. What do you think?" The Lord God suddenly said. The other lords' expressions changed when they heard that. Was the Lord God planning to recruit Song? Since he could not defeat him, he would find a way to recruit him. What a way to do that! However, whenever they thought of how Chu Kuangren had humiliated them, and how he had killed so many of their overgods, They could not help but feel a ball of fire burning in their hearts. F***ck. Could it be that he would have to stand in the same camp as this guy in the future, and see him all the time? Moreover, with his strength he would definitely be second only to the Lord God once he joined the deity camp. Would that not mean that their positions would always be suppressed by him? The more they thought about it, the more upset they felt. Join you guys? Have you lost your mind from sleeping? Chu Kuangren sneered. The Lord God's expression darkened. I've given you a chance, but you don't want it. You guys are the ones who asked me to throw you away. State your terms. The Lord God took a deep breath to suppress the anger in his heart. If they continued fighting, not only would his internal injuries not recover, but they might even worsen. That was something he did not want to see. Since you want to sit down and negotiate, I'll give you guys a chance. I only have one condition. For the next 100,000 years, the deities must not interfere with the development of the human race. Chu Kuangren said. 100,000 years is too long. 100,000 years is very short compared to your lifespan. What if I don't agree? You must understand that we sovereigns are undying. In this aspect, you have no advantage at all. Chu Kuangren chuckled. If the lords are immortal, then the other deities. Believe me, if I give up my life, I have a way to make all the deities except for the lords vanish. And you lords will fall into a deep slumber. When that time comes, your godheads will be taken by the other humans. They will refine your godheads, and a new batch of deities will be born. So what if you guys are revived? The deities' expressions changed when they heard Chu Kuangren's words. If that was really the case, then the newly born gods would definitely stand on the side of the human race. After the resurrection of the main gods, they would no longer have any advantage. In fact, the new godly general was now above them. I agree to your conditions, the God Lord lightly said. Then I hope you can keep your promise. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Zhongyu didn't ask him to make any heavenly Tao oath because to these innate gods, the heavenly Tao oath had almost no binding power. He turned around and stepped into the void, disappearing on the spot. After he left, the Master God's face was extremely gloomy. He punched the void, and the divine power with a destructive aura destroyed a large piece of the void. Azure. This debt, the divine race will not let it go just like that. The God Lord coldly said. At the side, the other Master Gods fell silent for a good while. To be forced into such a state by a single human was something that they would never have dared to imagine in the past. But now it had really happened. Lord God, what should we do from now on? I will continue my seclusion to recover. Once my injuries are healed, I will personally kill Tsang. The human race will also continue to be under our control. While I am in seclusion, the God race will temporarily stop all activities. The Master God said. The other Master Gods nodded slightly. That's the only way. In the Yenwu tribe, a dozen heavenly honorables were gathered together. Our king is too reckless for him to go to the godly mountain alone. You should know that this is the God race's territory. What if something happens to our king? How will the human race develop in the future? That's right. Our king carries the future of the entire human race on his back. These heavenly honorables were the strong cultivators of the God-defying pavilion. They were also the most powerful cultivators of the human race. At this moment, they had already regarded Chu Kuangren as their king and the future of the human race. If something were to happen to him, it would be a huge blow to the human race. If the human race's future can only be carried by me alone, then the human race will be in deep sorrow. An indifferent voice was heard. Chu Kuangren walked out of the void. The crowd was overjoyed to see him. Are you all right, King? Chu Kuangren waved his hand and said, I'm fine. Then he put on a serious expression and said, the human race's future is everyone's business. It's not something that can be decided by one person. No matter how strong I am, I'm just one person. I can't take care of everyone. Everyone's faces were filled with shame. Our king is right. We understand. We were foolish. By the way, King, how did your trip to the godly mountain go? Yenwu asked as he carefully looked at Chu Kuangren. His eyes were filled with worry, afraid that he might be injured. Yes, it went well. There was just a small accident. What accident? The Master God has awakened. The crowd's expression changed. The Lord of the Gods. He's awake. Master God, wasn't he injured by an immortal a long time ago and fell into a deep slumber? How did he wake up so quickly? Are you hurt, King? Chu Kuangren waved his hand to silence the crowd. Then he told them everything that happened on the godly mountain. The crowd's eyes lit up when they heard that Chu Kuangren had bought 100,000 years for the human race. The human race had made great progress in just a few years. If the human race had another 100,000 years, it was unimaginable how far they could go. By then, they would definitely be able to suppress the celestial tribe. Although we have 100,000 years, no one knows if the celestial tribe will keep their promise. Don't let your guard down. Chu Kuangren gave them a few pointers. After that, he walked out the door and looked at the snow. This snow will stop soon. Yinwu, I'll leave the rest to you. Yes. Seeing Chu Kuangren standing in the snow, Qingyi looked around the room and asked, King, where's your cloak? Chu Kuangren looked apologetic and took out the broken cloak. Qingyi, I'm sorry. I accidentally damaged this cloak during the battle on the godly mountain. It's a shame that I've wasted your good intentions. The rest of the heavenly honorables' mouths twitched. This trip to the godly mountain, killing deities, battling the master gods, and even the master gods, only a cloak was damaged. What kind of level had the king reached? The crowd was secretly shocked. Qingyi looked at the cloak and smiled helplessly. King, it's our greatest consolation that you're fine. It's just a cloak. I'll just make another one. There's no need to feel sorry. To him, the king was too gentle at times. But this point made people follow him even more wholeheartedly. Ha, I'll be troubling you then. Chu Kuangren smiled. After talking to the crowd for a while, he returned to his room and took out the loot from the godly mountain. They were all godheads. The most important ones were the godheads of the light, darkness, and space-time master gods. Extremely powerful energies flowed on them. Looking at these godheads, Chu Kuangren was deep in thought. Chapter 794. If these godhoods can be refined by humans, it can indeed increase the number of strong cultivators in the human tribe. However, the divinity within the godhoods might have a negative impact on the human's mind. Chu Kuangren played with the godhoods in his hand and muttered, if a human were to refine a godhead, they would indeed be able to become a new god. However, their strength would also be fixed there. Over time, these new deities would seek to improve under the influence of the divinity, and they would walk the same path as the other deities. It was also the reason why Chu Kuangren had not allowed anyone to refine these godheads for so many years. After all, humans and deities were two different existences. I'll keep these godhoods for now. Should I go back now? Chu Kuangren took out the temporal master god's godhood. As long as he had the temporal master god's godhood, he could use the temporal mirror to open up the river of time and return to the future. It's time to make some preparations for my return. Chu Kuangren murmured. Once he left, the deities would definitely come out to wreak havoc again. If that happened, the human tribe's development over the past few years would all be for naught. Before he left, he had to make some preparations. After the battle at the godly mountain, the deities were completely silent. Very few deities were roaming the world. Under Chu Kuangren's leadership, the human tribe flourished. Time passed, and another 2 years had passed. On this day, Chu Kuangren stood on the peak of a mountain, surrounded by layers of enchanted boundaries. Even the overgods could not spy on this place. It won't be long before the city is built. This will be the human tribe's first city. Chu Kuangren looked at the human city that was being built at the foot of the mountain with a hint of relief in his eyes. In recent years, under Chu Kuangren's leadership, the human tribe had entered the era of city-states. Everywhere was undergoing large-scale construction, and cities were being built. Once these cities were built, the human tribe's development would enter a new stage, and the human tribe would establish its first nation. It's time for me to leave. Chu Kuangren murmured. He took a deep breath, and 3 rays of light flew out from his head, forming into 3 souls that sat on top of the lotus throne. No matter what, We've stayed here for quite a few years. I'm quite reluctant to leave just like that, Chu Kuangren's heavenly soul said. Beside him, the fourth transformation human soul, who had cultivated for 2 years, looked at the heavenly soul and calmly said, "We will look after him for you." Heh, then I'll have to trouble you too. Tianhun smiled. Chu Kuangren had decided to return to the future. However, before he left, he cultivated the human soul and planned to leave the earth soul and human soul in this era. As the leading heavenly soul, he returned to the future. If possible, we will meet again in the future. It's probably a little difficult. According to historical records, the Azure Emperor fought with the Divine Master in the immemorial Kunlun Abyss and perished together. Tianhun said thoughtfully. The Earth Soul and Mortal Soul naturally knew about this as well. The future is unpredictable. Perhaps when you return to the future, you will see a different future under our guidance. Don't do anything rash. If there are too many changes in the future, there is no guarantee that nothing will go wrong, Tianhun said with a frown. In the future, he had too many things he cared about. He didn't want anything to happen to him. We understand. The Earth Soul and Human Soul were both Chu Kuangren's. They knew his concerns. All right, I'll take my leave then. Chu Kuangren took out the temporal mirror, and the God of Space's Godhead. The three souls unleashed their mind powers at the same time. The God of Space's Godhead unleashed an immense amount of space-time energy that flowed into the temporal mirror under the control of his mind power. Boom, a powerful shockwave erupted in the void. Almost half of the enchanted boundary that Chu Kuangren had set up around the area was destroyed. A golden vortex appeared. The whirlpool seemed to reflect a long river that flowed endlessly from the past to the present. The river contained the changes of all things in the world. Goodbye, both of you. Chu Kuangren's heavenly soul smiled. Then his figure flashed and leaped into the golden vortex. Not long after, the temporal mirror and the golden vortex disappeared. The Earth Soul and Human Soul looked at each other with sadness in their eyes. All right, from now on, we are Tsang. The Earth Soul and Human Soul duo said as they looked at the city that was being built at the foot of the mountain. They could not return to the future anymore. They had to stay here and lead the development of the human tribe. From now on, they could only live as Tsang. Time can wash away everything. I'll leave the future to the heavenly soul. All right. The Earth Soul and Human Soul duo returned to their physical bodies. Tsang lifted his arm and unleashed his mind power, shattering the enchanted boundary. Not far away, Green Shirt walked over. Looking at Tsang, Green Shirt was confused. He felt that his king was different, but he could not tell what was different. King, Yanwu and the others are waiting for you to return for a meeting. All right, I understand. Tsang nodded. In the river of time, as Chu Kuangren walked, his emperor's thoughts spread out in all directions, searching for the time point before he transmigrated. However, the river of time was too vast. Although Chu Kuangren's emperor's thought was powerful, it was not an easy task to find the time point. However, he saw the development of the human tribe after he left. The Earth Soul and Human Soul duo, which was Tsang, led the human tribe's development after Chu Kuangren left. The number of cultivators gradually increased. The number of strong cultivators in the God-defying pavilion continued to rise. In fact, the first Tao Lord had appeared. As expected of me. Not bad at all, Chu Kuangren said. However, 10,000 years later, the deities broke the 100,000-year promise and started a war with the human tribe. Meanwhile, Tsang and the Lord deity had a duel. Both sides fought at the ancient Kunlun Abyss and both fell. However, before Tsang fell, he used the human emperor's seal to seal the entire godly mountain into the void. Even if the Lord deity could be resurrected, he could not leave the godly mountain. However, there were still the Lord deities among the deities. The human tribe fell into despair. At that time, the hidden power of the human tribe, the God-defying pavilion, appeared before everyone's eyes. The battle of the God-defying pavilion had begun. The deities did not expect that under Tsang's leadership, the human tribe could develop so many strong cultivators in just 10,000 years. The deities were either killed or sealed, until there was no longer any sign of the deities. The human tribe has won. Chu Kuangren could not help but feel emotional as he witnessed the entire battle of the God-defying pavilion. In the past, he had only read about the battle of the God-defying pavilion in ancient books. However, this time, he witnessed it with his own eyes. This feeling was completely different. It seems that the course of history hasn't changed much. After the battle of the God-defying pavilion, it was the Blood Tribe's invasion. Earth Spirit, human spirit has completed his mission and led the human race to develop. Leave the future to me, Chu Kuangren said. His emperor's thought surged as he searched for the time point before he transmigrated. In the process, he saw the human tribe's future development. From ancient times to modern times, nations changed and orthodoxies continued. However, following the Blood Tribe's invasion, the heavenly Tao was damaged, and the firmament star entered an era of Dharma decline. Even emperors rarely appeared. Chapter 795. I haven't found it yet. How long will it take to keep searching like this? Chu Kuangren could not help but frown in the river of time. Xiao Ai, do you have any ideas? Chu Kuangren asked. Master, can you try to sense the power of faith? The power of faith? Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. Yes, the power of faith exists for you, Master. It has a connection with you, and through sensing the power of faith, it can lock onto the time node of your era, Xiao Ai said. Yeah, why didn't you say so earlier? Master, you didn't ask before. Is it my fault? Chu Kuangren stared. The all-knowing spirit, Xiao Ai, was speechless. Why aren't you answering me? Master, you're so annoying. Sai, how dare you talk back to me? I'm going to drag you out and give you a good beating. Chu Kuangren curled his lips and said. The all-knowing spirit is connected to your soul. There is no such thing in the known universe that can strip the all-knowing spirit. Xiao Ai's voice was filled with a hint of pride. Yes, you're amazing. Chu Kuangren did not dwell on that. He calmed down and began to sense the power of faith that belonged to him in the river of time. Time passed. Chu Kuangren suddenly felt a familiar wave of energy. It was the power of faith. It was as if he could hear countless people calling out to him. True God, Black God, I hope you can bless our village with good weather this year, and a good harvest next year. True God, Black God, my wife is pregnant. I hope you can bless both of them to be safe. True God, Black God, I'm going to take the exams next year. I hope you can bless me to pass. I'll come back to fulfill my wish. Countless prayers echoed in his ears. Some were intermittent and sounded very vague, while others were much clearer. It seemed like the level of devotion was different. Found it. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. He flew towards a certain time node. Soon he arrived in the river of time, in front of a wave made up of countless light spots. He locked onto a light spot and flew towards it. With a whoosh, he disappeared into that light spot. In the vast universe, a golden vortex appeared. Then a figure sitting on a lotus throne appeared. It was Chu Kuangren. In the universe, chaotic and mixed spiritual energy swept over. Chu Kuangren circulated his mind power and isolated himself from the outside world. Then he carefully sensed the location of his physical body. His physical body was immortal, although it had been disintegrated into countless particles during the battle on Blood God Mountain. It should have recovered by now. In that direction? Chu Kuangren aimed at a direction and flew towards it. Purple Gold Galaxy Shell Planet. The Bay Planet was also a cultivator civilization, but it was inconspicuous in the Purple Gold Galaxy. It was one level lower than the firmament star. The strongest on Shell Star were ordinary emperors. Just today. In the dark night of Beijing, a stream of light suddenly flew over. Mom, look, there's a shooting star. On the street, a little girl pointed at the sky and said excitedly. At the side, a gentle woman smiled faintly. She looked at the flowing light that flashed by, and a wisp of worry appeared in her eyes. A ray of light descending from the sky. Furthermore, this ray of light seems to contain a strange fluctuation. Could it be some sort of otherworldly object? Although Beijing's cultivator civilization was not developed, they still had a certain understanding of otherworldly civilizations. There were countless civilizations in the vast universe, and among them, there were some powerful civilizations that lived by plundering. Once Beijing was targeted, it would be a calamity that would destroy the world. Except for the gentle woman. The other cultivators on Beijing also noticed the arrival of the ray of light. They looked into the distance and could not help but have a glimmer in their eyes. This is the second time, right? In the past 3 years, Beijing has had 2 otherworldly objects come to this planet. What does this sign mean? Could it be that an otherworldly civilization really has its eyes on Beijing? Perhaps it's some kind of otherworldly treasure. Send someone to check it out. Besides, there should be news about the otherworldly object from Profound Water Sect. The ray of light from outer space attracted the attention of all the cultivators on Beijing. That ray of light flew across the sky and arrived at a mountain peak. When the ray of light dissipated, it turned into a white-robed man who was sitting on a lotus platform. His handsome appearance made him look like an otherworldly deity. The person who came was Chu Kuangren. After his arrival, a powerful suppressive force shrouded him. Chu Kuangren knew that it was the Beijing's heavenly Tao. Am I not welcome here? Chu Kuangren chuckled. He gently raised his hand, and a mysterious Taoist pattern intertwined in his palm. That was the heavenly Tao's power. The 2 heavenly Taos collided. Following that, Beijing's heavenly Tao's power receded like the tide. Beijing no longer had any suppression on Chu Kuangren. The firmament star's heavenly Tao is above the Beijing's heavenly Tao. Chu Kuangren was not surprised by this result. The planets in the universe were divided into 9 grades. Only planets that could give birth to civilizations could be called life-sustaining planets, and could give birth to the heavenly Tao. The life-sustaining planets were divided into low-grade, mid-grade, high-grade, and immortal grade. Before coming to Beijing, he had used the spirit of omniscience to analyze this life-sustaining planet. It was only a grade 4 planet, a mid-grade life-sustaining planet. The firmament star was a grade 7 planet, a high-grade life-sustaining planet. Compared to Beijing, it was 2 grades higher. Chu Kuangren possessed the firmament star's heavenly Tao's power. Naturally, the Beijing's heavenly Tao would not dare to act recklessly in the face of a higher-grade heavenly Tao. Based on my senses, my physical body landed on this Beijing. I'll have to search for the exact location. Chu Kuangren's emperor's thought surged and covered the entire Beijing. His emperor's thought was so strong that no cultivation civilization on Beijing could isolate it. The entire Beijing had nowhere to hide from his senses. Soon, he found the location of his physical body. However, he could not help but frown. What are these people trying to do to my body? Beijing, Profound Water Sect. As one of the 3 rarest emperor-level orthodoxies on Beijing, the Profound Water Sect had tens of thousands of disciples, and all of them were elite cultivators. On Beijing, the Profound Water Sect was the holy land for hundreds of millions of cultivators. However, 3 years ago, the news of the Profound Water Sect obtaining an extraterrestrial item spread like wildfire. When the other 2 emperor-level orthodoxies heard about it, they joined forces to pressure the Profound Water Sect to hand over the extraterrestrial item. However, the Profound Water Sect would not hand it over so easily. After the war, all 3 parties suffered losses, and hundreds of sage cultivators died. In the end, the leaders of the 3 parties sat down for a peace talk. After a series of intense negotiations, they decided to study the extraterrestrial item together. Today was the day that the Profound Water Sect would take out the extraterrestrial item for the other 2 emperor-level orthodoxies to study. Everyone in the Profound Water Sect's plaza was looking forward to it. Profound Water Sect Master, it's time to keep your promise and hand over the extraterrestrial item. A red-haired burly man said. This person was the emperor of Beijing's other emperor-level orthodoxy, the Divine Kingdom of Flame. Don't worry, I won't go back on my word. The Profound Water Sect's sect master was a gentle-looking lady. After she finished speaking, a group of people carried a crystal coffin over from afar. A person was lying in that crystal coffin. Chapter 796. A crystal coffin was carried into the square of the abstruse water gate. A person was lying in the coffin. Everyone was stunned when they saw that person. They swore that this person was the most perfect person they had ever seen. His eyebrows were like swords, his nose was tall, his facial features were exquisite, and his skin was as white as jade. The person lay quietly in the crystal coffin like the most perfect creation of the heavens. Many of the female cultivators present were dazzled by him. Who is this person? He's so handsome. Didn't they say they were going to take out the item from beyond the heavens? Is this man related to the item from beyond the heavens? What does the abstruse water gate mean? Everyone was puzzled. The abstruse water gate master glanced at the man in the crystal coffin. This person is the item from beyond the heavens that appeared 3 years ago. What? The crowd was in an uproar when they heard this. The Hierophant of Flame said, "This person is the item from beyond the heavens." That's right. The abstruse water gate master nodded. 3 years ago, this person suddenly fell from the heavens and went 3 kilometers underground. When I dug him out, I found that while this body was unharmed, there was no aura at all, as if he was dead. However, it contained an enormous amount of energy. At this point, her eyes revealed a hint of surprise. The energy is so enormous that it's unbelievable. The Hierophant of Flame walked to the crystal coffin and sensed it carefully. When he sensed the energy contained within the body, his expression changed drastically. This energy is Emperor Qi. This person is also an emperor, but isn't the scale of Emperor Qi a little too exaggerated? He was also an emperor, but he felt that his Emperor Qi was like a small stream compared to the ocean. There was no comparison at all. What cultivation level was this person at when he was alive? The Hierophant of Flame exclaimed. The Sky Dragon Pavilion Master of another Emperor Orthodoxy walked over to sense it as well. His eyes lit up. If we can use this energy, it will definitely be of great help. That's right. The Hierophant of Flame seemed excited as well. It's useless. I've tried many ways to extract the energy from this body, but it's useless. The abstruse water gate master couldn't help but pour a bucket of cold water on everyone. I don't believe it. The Lord of Flame opened the crystal coffin, and a black flame appeared in his palm. Then it covered the head of the body. His thoughts were simple and crude. That huge amount of energy existed within this body. As long as he destroyed this body, the energy would leak out. As long as he could obtain that energy, even if it was just a little bit, he would be able to increase his current realm by another level. It was a beautiful idea, but reality gave him a rude awakening. No matter how his flames burned the body in front of him, it did not suffer any damage. Not even a strand of hair was harmed. F***CK, what kind of body is this? Isn't his fleshly body a little too monstrous? The Divine Flame Monarch couldn't help but exclaim. Beside him, the Profound Water Sect Master was not surprised at all. She had long since understood the strength of this body. The toughness of this body is simply unimaginable. I've tried everything, but I couldn't damage it in the slightest. The Profound Water Sect Master said indifferently. I don't believe it. At the side, the Heavenly Dragon Pavilion Master took out a pitch-black long blade. It was an imperial weapon. It's the Heavenly Dragon Blade. Legend has it that this blade was passed down by the first ancestral master of the Heavenly Dragon Pavilion. It's so powerful that it's ranked in the top 3 in Bay Planet. That's right. This is one of the strongest trump cards of the Heavenly Dragon Pavilion. Can this Heavenly Dragon Blade hurt this body? Everyone looked at the Heavenly Dragon Pavilion Master expectantly. Some female cultivators looked at the body in the crystal coffin with heartache. This was such a good-looking person. Why did he have to treat him like this? Some female cultivators had already closed their eyes and couldn't bear to watch anymore. Break for me. The Heavenly Dragon Pavilion Master shouted. He gathered all the Imperial Qi in his body on the Heavenly Dragon Blade in his hand, and slashed out fiercely. The sharp blade light condensed at one point, and slashed at the body. Clang! There was a metallic sound and a string of sparks shot out. Immediately after, the Heavenly Dragon Pavilion Master felt an extremely strong rebounding force. His expression changed and he was sent flying. He was sent flying hundreds of feet away. The Heavenly Dragon Blade in his hand was trembling. The arm that held the blade had already split open, and blood kept gushing out. Looking at the body in the crystal coffin, it was still flawless and unscathed. Oh my God, is this really a human body? Even the toughest metal on Shell Planet would be cut in half by that slash. How could it not hurt this body at all? That's too terrifying, everyone exclaimed. They looked at the crystal coffin with incredulity. The Heavenly Dragon Pavilion Master was also shocked. What is this body made of? What is this person's background? Inexplicably, he suddenly felt a little frightened. If this person was alive, thinking of this, he looked at the mysterious water sect master and asked, "Are you sure this person is really dead?" The mysterious water sect master glanced at him. "This body doesn't have any soul fluctuations. Do you think he's dead or alive?" Everything had a soul. Without a soul, it was no different from death. How can a dead person have such a strong physical body? It's unbelievable. This body definitely hides a great cultivation secret. That's right. We must figure it out. The Divine Flame Monarch and the Heavenly Dragon Pavilion Master said with fiery eyes. They had already become thearchs and were the top experts on Shell Planet. One word from them could determine the life and death of billions of people. However, as cultivators, it was their instinct to pursue higher realms. They definitely could not give up on the secret in this body. 8 Desolation Divine Furnace, appear. The Divine Flame Monarch shouted, and took out a huge golden 3-legged bronze furnace. This is my country's inheritance item. It can refine everything in the world. I don't believe I can't refine this body. He raised his hand and threw the body into the bronze furnace. Instantly, golden flames exploded in the furnace. The Divine Flame Monarch pushed his Tharch energy to the extreme. In the furnace, the body emitted sparkling light under the burning flames. Countless Tao patterns seemed to be stimulated and flowed on the surface of the body. Those Tao patterns were too mysterious. The few thearchs were dazzled. It works. It really works. Haha, I can't refine it in a short time. However, I don't believe I can't refine it in 100 years, 1,000 years, or even 10,000 years. The Divine Flame Monarch laughed. His eyes shone with unprecedented brilliance. How many years had it been? How many years had he been trapped in this Tharch realm? Now he finally saw the hope of breaking through. As long as I can find out the secret of this body, not only can I break through my current realm, but it is also possible for me to reach higher realms. It was not only the Divine Flame Monarch, the Heavenly Dragon Pavilion Master, the mysterious Water Sect Master, and the others were also looking forward to it. But at this moment, the body in the bronze furnace seemed to have sensed something. It trembled slightly, and a trace of energy was released from it. To this body, it was just a trace of energy. However, to the thearchs present, it was a great terror that they had never seen before. With a boom, the Divine Flame Monarch's 8 Desolation Divine Furnace exploded on the spot. Terrifying flames engulfed the surroundings. The Divine Flame Monarch was the first to be hit. He was blown away by the flames and died on the spot. What do you want to do to my body? Chapter 797. What are you trying to do to my body? An indifferent voice suddenly echoed throughout the entire profound water palace. A ray of light flashed past. Everyone was initially troubled by the sudden explosion of the Divine 8 Wilderness Cauldron, but they immediately looked over when they heard the voice. Who is it? His body. What does that mean? Everyone looked over. All they saw was a young man sitting on a lotus throne in the void, staring at everyone with his chin in his hand. What surprised everyone the most was that this person's appearance was exactly the same as the man in the crystal coffin. What's going on? Who is this person? Everyone's mind was filled with doubts. The Sky Dragon Pavilion Master and Profound Water Sect Master stared at the young man who had suddenly appeared, which was Chu Kuangren, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. They felt an incomparably terrifying pressure from the other party, as if they were ants facing a dragon. The invisible pressure actually made them want to prostrate themselves in worship. Who are you, and why have you suddenly come to the Profound Water Sect? The Profound Water Sect Master forced himself to ask. Don't you think it's funny that you're asking me who I am after cutting and burning my body? Chu Kuangren said softly. The cultivators at the scene could not help but narrow their eyes when they heard him. They took a closer look and realized that Chu Kuangren's body was indeed in a soul form, which shocked them. How powerful must one's soul be to walk the earth in a soul form to ensure that it would not dissipate? We didn't know you were still alive. Please forgive us if we've been too presumptuous. The profound water sect master immediately admitted defeat. He was too powerful. He was not someone they could fight against at all. On the other hand, the Sky Dragon Pavilion master stared at Chu Kuangren, his eyes flickering as he struggled internally. Should he admit defeat like the profound water sect master? That might save his life, but at the same time, it would also mean that he would lose the opportunity to ascend to the next realm. Should he fight with him? However, Chu Kuangren was unpredictable. Just that invisible domineering aura alone was enough to suffocate him. If he fought with Chu Kuangren, he would most likely die. After a series of intense struggles, the Heavenly Dragon Pavilion Master's eyes turned cold. He took out a jade scroll and crushed it. Then, he charged towards Chu Kuangren with the Heavenly Dragon blade in his hand. With a single slash, a dragon-shaped saber chi whizzed out. Heavenly Dragon Pavilion Master, you can't. The profound water sect master's expression changed drastically. She felt that the Heavenly Dragon Pavilion Master must have gone mad. Otherwise, why would he suddenly attack Chu Kuangren? After all, Chu Kuangren was an existence whose strength was many times stronger than all of them. No matter how good his cultivation was, could it be more important than his life? The dragon-shaped blade chi was already in front of Chu Kuangren. A playful smile appeared on Chu Kuangren's face. How brave of you to attack me. He sat motionlessly on the lotus platform. His mind power gushed out. The dragon-shaped saber chi instantly dissipated. How powerful. To be able to display such strength in his soul form. If this person's soul and body become one, even 10 of me would die. The Heavenly Dragon Pavilion Master thought to himself. The reason he dared to attack Chu Kuangren was because he knew that Chu Kuangren was only in soul form, and he thought that the strength that Chu Kuangren could unleash was limited. But he was wrong. If it were any other cultivator, their soul and body would be separated, and their strength would be greatly reduced. However, Chu Kuangren was no ordinary cultivator. His soul energy was extremely powerful, and with his mind power talent, his mind power attacks were no less powerful than an emperor's essence. This person's soul energy is very strong. It seems that it won't be easy to hold him back, the Heavenly Dragon Pavilion Master murmured. He never thought that he could defeat Chu Kuangren. All he needed to do was to hold his opponent back, until he revealed his true trump card. Heavenly Blade Dragon Transformation appear. The Heavenly Dragon Pavilion Master tossed the Heavenly Dragon Blade in his hand into the air. The pitch-black longsword let out a dazzling brilliance, and countless Taoist patterns circulated before it finally transformed into a ferocious black flying dragon. The form of this flying dragon was very realistic. The dragon's poise filled the air, shaking the surroundings. Rumor has it that the Heavenly Dragon Pavilion's first pavilion master was one of the most talented cultivators in Bay Star's history. When he became an emperor, he once killed a dragon beast and refined its soul into his weapon. It seems that the rumor is true. This is that dragon's soul. What terrifying power. I'm afraid not many in Bay Star can match up to it. The Heavenly Dragon Pavilion Master's emperor's chi continuously gushed out as he manipulated the dragon's soul and charged towards Chu Kuangren. The dragon's poise was so vast that the entire void began to collapse wherever it went. Chu Kuangren looked at the dragon's soul with interest. He gently lifted his hand, and an invisible mind power gushed out and formed into a giant invisible hand. In an instant, the originally powerful dragon's soul was grabbed by Chu Kuangren. It was fixed in midair as it struggled continuously. Its roar was like thunder, causing the void to tremble. You're just a little worm. Compared to my Lil Red, you're nothing. Chu Kuangren curled his lips. The true dragon and the godly phoenix were divine beasts born from the heavenly Tao, and their growth potential was very high. Even in the vast universe, they were ranked among the top beasts, and they even had a high chance of becoming immortals in the future. However, Chu Kuangren could not see any such potential in the black dragon before him. It was obvious that it was not a true dragon. It was just a dragon beast that had obtained some true dragon blood from God knows where. There were many similar beasts. Hiss, a loud gasp could be heard from the surroundings. It was as if there was a huge swarm of rattlesnakes. Everyone was shocked. That was a dragon beast, whose strength was much stronger than the average emperor. Yet Chu Kuangren managed to grab it through the air. Break! The Sky Dragon Pavilion Master roared furiously. He channeled the Emperor's chi in his body to its limit, intending to help the dragon beast break free from Chu Kuangren's mind control. However, no matter how much his Emperor's chi gushed out and the dragon beast struggled, Chu Kuangren's mind power did not budge. The difference between them was just too great. Alright, I'm done playing with you guys, Chu Kuangren said. He clenched his fist in the void. With a bang, the dragon beast was shattered on the spot. After the dragon beast dissipated, it turned back into the heavenly dragon blade. However, in the next instant, the famous emperor weapon shattered into countless pieces. How could this be? How could this be? The Sky Dragon Pavilion Master's face turned pale. Then Chu Kuangren looked at him. One look from Chu Kuangren was enough to make him tremble. Stop it! A voice came from afar. A ray of light flew over. The Sky Dragon Pavilion Master was delighted when he heard that voice. The Honorable Forefather is here. However, Chu Kuangren did not care about that voice at all. His mind power gushed out and locked onto the Sky Dragon Pavilion Master. The Sky Dragon Pavilion Master's joyful expression instantly turned into horror. The next moment, with a bang, just like the heavenly dragon blade, the Sky Dragon Pavilion Master was turned into countless pieces of flesh and blood. D****. An old man rushed to the scene and saw that Chu Kuangren had killed the Sky Dragon Pavilion Master. His face was so gloomy that it looked like it was about to explode. I told you to stop. Did you not hear me? Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Of course I did. But do you think I'll stop just because you told me to? Do you think I'm that shameless? Chapter 798. Do you think I should stop just because you told me to? Do you think I'm that shameless? Chu Kuangren said calmly. Upon hearing that, the Sky Dragon Ancestral Master's expression turned gloomy. He killed the Sky Dragon Pavilion Master for such a ridiculous reason. It's him, the Sky Dragon Ancestral Master. Among the crowd, someone recognized the Sky Dragon Ancestral Master and could not help but exclaim. It was because the Sky Dragon Ancestral Master was too famous. He was the most talented cultivator in the history of Bay Planet's cultivation world. He single-handedly created the Sky Dragon Pavilion, and his self-created 9 forms of the Sky Dragon was almost invincible. Didn't the rumors say that the Sky Dragon Ancestral Master is dead? Why would he appear again? Is he faking his death? Isn't it obvious? I'm afraid he has been cultivating in the Sky Dragon Pavilion all these years. After so many years, who knows how terrifying his strength has become? I'm afraid no one in this world is his match. The cultivators from the Profound Water Sect and the Divine Flame Kingdom couldn't help but frown when they saw this. They were very surprised by Patriarch Heavenly Dragon's sudden appearance. However, the Sky Dragon Ancestral Master did not care about the others. At that moment, Chu Kuangren was the only person in his eyes. He could feel a terrifying threat from Chu Kuangren that he had never felt before. For countless years, he had rarely felt this way. Today it was stronger than ever. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren was also sizing up the Sky Dragon Ancestral Master before him. An ordinary heavenly honorable realm cultivator was nothing to him. What he cared about was, the Sky Dragon Ancestral Master had a familiar power. That was, the power of the Heavenly Tao. It was the first time he felt the power of the Heavenly Tao from someone else. Shall I analyze this person? Yes, Master. The Sky Dragon Ancestral Master is a lower-level Heavenly Honorable, with a top-tier Emperor essence and a perfect Tao. He has mastered the top-tier 9 forms of the Sky Dragon. He possesses the Bay Planet's Heavenly Tao and is the Bay Planet Lord. Information about the Sky Dragon Ancestral Master appeared in his mind. Chu Kuangren was quite surprised. Bay Planet Lord? Planet Lord? A Planet Lord? Yes, the Heavenly Dragon Patriarch has been acknowledged by the Bay Star's Heavenly Axiom, and can use the power of the Heavenly Axiom. He's the Lord of the Star, so to a certain extent, Master is also the Lord of the Firmament Star, Xiao Ai said. I see. Chu Kuangren fell into deep thought. While he was deep in thought, the Heavenly Dragon Patriarch suddenly made his move. An extremely powerful monarch chi burst forth from his body. Countless Dao runes spread out, forming a small world that enveloped the surroundings. After that, the Sky Dragon Ancestral Lord formed his 5 fingers into a claw and clawed at Chu Kuangren. Heavenly Dragon 9 Styles, Heavenly Dragon Claw. The shadow of a gigantic dragon claw charged towards Chu Kuangren. The others were dumbfounded. Patriarch Heavenly Dragon had actually launched a sneak attack. Was this the same cultivator who was rumored to be famous and talented in Beijing? However, this also showed how much pressure Chu Kuangren had exerted on the Sky Dragon Ancestral Master. It was so much so that the Ancestral Master did not even care about his pride. Even if it was just to increase his chances of winning, he would resort to a sneak attack. Puny Empyrean, so what if you sneak attack? Chu Kuangren activated his mind power. In almost an instant, the Heavenly Dragon Claw was destroyed, and half of the Heavenly Dragon Patriarch's body was blown to smithereens. What? Patriarch Heavenly Dragon's pupils constricted. Following that, his body emitted a burst of light, and his damaged body was recovering at an extremely fast speed. Oh, it's some kind of healing treasure. I can't believe there's such a treasure on Beijing. What a surprise! Chu Kuangren said in surprise. After the Sky Dragon Ancestral Master recovered, he looked at Chu Kuangren in horror. He had been defeated in just one move. If it were not for the treasures on him, he would have died just now. Chu Kuangren was already so powerful in his soul form. How terrifying would he be if his soul and body were to fuse as one? No, I must give it my all. Heavenly Dao, lend me a hand. The Sky Dragon Ancestral Master roared. Dark clouds surged in the sky, and a surge of Heavenly Dao energy surged onto the Sky Dragon Ancestral Master's body, causing his aura to skyrocket. The Sky Dragon Ancestral Master's eyes gradually became indifferent, as if there was no emotion in them. Then he pointed a finger at Chu Kuangren from afar. Sky Dragon Finger. Majestic Emperor's Qi and Taoist runes converged to form a giant golden finger. When the finger was pointed, a large portion of the void collapsed. All the cultivators present, including the emperors, were horrified. Heavenly Dao energy? He Beixing's Heavenly Dao is too weak, and you're even weaker. Chu Kuangren shook his head. With a thought, endless streams of fire gathered around him, and formed into a golden-red fire lotus. The golden-red fire lotus flew out. It exploded with a loud bang. The void shattered, and the fire lotus landed on the Sky Dragon Ancestral Master like a hot knife through butter, forcefully knocking him out of his Taoist unification state. Impossible, this can't be. How can your power be so powerful? How can it be on par with the Beixing's Heavenly Dao? The Sky Dragon Ancestral Master could not believe it. I can destroy this tiny Beixing in 2 or 3 moves. What do you think the Beixing's Heavenly Dao can do to me? Chu Kuangren said indifferently. The crowd went crazy. What kind of person has come to the Beixing? Even the Heavenly Dao can't do anything to him. No, I don't want to die. The Sky Dragon Ancestral Master had witnessed Chu Kuangren's strength. He no longer had any intention of fighting him, so he turned around and fled. Where can you run to? Chu Kuangren said indifferently. With a thought, spiritual qi gathered into a weapon and shot out. The Sky Dragon Ancestral Master was instantly blasted into a cloud of blood mist. After his death, a golden light orb floated in the void. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up when he saw that light orb. He channeled his mind power towards that light orb. However, at that moment, an invisible force swept towards Chu Kuangren, trying to block his mind power. That was the Beixing's Heavenly Dao. That light orb was part of the Heavenly Dao's origin. It was because of this origin that the Sky Dragon Ancestral Master was able to control the Heavenly Dao's power. Now, Chu Kuangren wanted to plunder this origin of heavenly Tao. Get lost. With a soft yell, Chu Kuangren channeled his mind power to its limit. The Beixing's heavenly Tao's suppression was blasted away by him. Just like what he said, if he were to unleash his full power, it would not be a problem to destroy the entire Beixing. What could the Beixing's heavenly Tao do to him? Chu Kuangren's mind power wrapped around the origin of heavenly Tao. Then he let Xiao AI analyze it. The origin of heavenly Tao had endless uses. Whether it was to increase one's cultivation level, or to gain insight into the Tao of cultivation, it was very beneficial. After obtaining that part of the origin of heavenly Tao, Chu Kuangren felt the heavenly Tao's power within his body suddenly let out a joyful emotion. Emotion? Could the heavenly Tao have emotions? Chu Kuangren was amazed. He enveloped the origin of heavenly Tao with his mind power, and together with his soul, he flew towards his physical body not far away. His soul entered his physical body. His soul and body became one. Chu Kuangren opened his eyes abruptly, and an extremely surging domineering aura spread out from him to the entire Beixing like a tidal wave. The entire Beixing shook violently because of that domineering aura. Countless living beings crawled on the ground, trembling in fear. It was as if doomsday had arrived on Beixing. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.